Hello and welcome, dearest friends of this here internet. My name is Mock, and I am back again. I am finally getting some discipline and actually doing the things that I want to do, rather than just putting them off. So this time, I am going to finally finish a sketch. I am trying my best not to make it too complicated, not make it too unreasonable, and I'm just gonna get it done. So like usual, I am going to be reacting to some videos while I work on my art, and the first one for today is from the actual Justice Warrior, who's recently uploaded, I think a few hours ago, and this video is titled Open Borders, Leftist Killed by Refugee Boyfriend. That sounds pretty messed up, so I wanted to find out what's going on with that.
I really like it when Ali calls me those Arabic words like marshmallow and habitat. Oh my god, are you stupid? Do you mean Habibti and mashallah?
So the woman that you're seeing right here is 43-year-old Jamie Carney. Now, Jamie Carney was a United States citizen. She's actually native to Westchester, New York, according to the New York Post article that is about her. And Jamie Carney is somebody who considered herself a left-wing activist, specifically on the issue of canceling ICE, because immigration enforcement is absolutely terrible. And unlike a lot of left-wing activists that are all talk, when the evil bad orange man was elected president for a second term, she decided that she was going to pack up her things and move to the nation of Ireland. And in fact, the area that she
She did it. She went through with it. That sounds pretty cool.
went to is called Killarney. This is an area that I visited last year while I was on vacation there. And what she did when she got to Killarney, which by the way, she moved there with her 13-year-old daughter. She was a single woman at age 43, single mother, I mean. And yeah, she decided that she was going to participate in the pro-Palestine activism scene. And of course, she was really going to double down on this and find herself a refugee man, an Arabic man, and start dating that individual because she wanted to show everybody that she was down with the cause. And in fact, she has many social media posts about the benefits of dating an Arabic man, about the benefits of dating a refugee, an asylum seeker. By the way, this guy was an asylum fraudster. Prior to being in Ireland, he was actually in France, a place that has become
Why have I heard that story before? Why are they always France first and then move into the UK?
becoming a more Islamic country, but not somewhere where he was facing any kind of oppression. And yeah, she had multiple different posts about the benefits of dating an Arabic man, about how she was being treated like a queen by this Arabic man, and how everything that Western men said about them was racist and absolutely horrible. And in reality, her experience was completely different, and this was despite the fact that this guy lived in a notorious refugee area that experienced a ton of violence, and despite the fact that she didn't really speak Arabic, so she could only understand 10% of what he was saying.
Oh no. He couldn't speak English. That is a recipe for disaster. I mean, if you're in a relationship with someone and you can't even understand each other, that's really tough.
But that 10% was enough for this woman to not only hang out with him, not only have this man in her home, but have this man in multiple locations with her 13-year-old daughter. And very unfortunately for her, this suicidal empathy actually did pay due, because she was murdered by this guy, allegedly, and now he is on the loose. And by the way, she was savagely beaten to death by this Arabic man that treated her like a queen. And this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
So this is one of her social media posts that I actually had to nerf the audio for because of copyright reasons, because there's music in the background. But it says, dating an Arabic man be like, and she's smiling, having a good time, and then she shows messages that she exchanged between this individual. Now the first message is, you have transcended the stage of love and friendship. You are the companion of the soul, and perhaps the soul itself. And then the next message is, I wish you...
Are they just communicating through Google Translate?
happiness and peace of mind, my dearest. And then there's one that says Shabadek. I don't know what that means. And then it says
They are just trying. Bro, that is rough. Shabadek.
And it says, I hope you have a beautiful day, my love. And then it says, I love you so much, Habibi. And then it says, I truly love you and want to embrace you. You are the source of my peace and comfort. My heart and soul are full of tenderness for you, my love. But you are my greatest concern, my love. Nothing else matters to me except you and your health. I miss you. I love my time with you, my darling. And then she captioned this post with, the most kind, emotionally intelligent, self-aware person I've ever known. Now again, it is very important to understand that this woman was not simply dating an Arabic man. She flew to Dublin, a foreign country, joined up with one of the most obnoxious activist groups in the entire world, the Free Pally types. That's how she met this particular individual, and when he said she was his comfort, that was because she was providing him with resources because, of course, like many of these people living off the taxpayer in the nation of Ireland, this guy didn't appear to have any jobs. So essentially, she was the sugar mama. She was providing him with all these different things. There's multiple different videos of her trying to speak Arabic, again, talking this guy up, talking his culture up, talking about how superior his culture is, even though, again, he abandoned his culture in order to go to Ireland and mooch off of their welfare system. And yeah, this woman was a poster child, or trying to be a poster child, for integration of these refugees, for humanizing these refugees, not realizing that this guy was not just from the third world, but his mindset was also a third worldist mindset. So reportedly around July 4th of this year, there was some arguing going on at their apartment, and guess what? She was found beaten to death by her 13-year-old daughter, and this man had already taken off and fled the nation. Now again, there are many compilations.
That fast? He just booked it? He just like completely like out of the nation, the whole place. That's crazy.
Of them together that you can find on the internet.com. I have to cut out the audio where it's copyrighted music because it will be claimed and this video will be suppressed. But as you can see from some of the stuff that I didn't cut the audio from, like this clip right here.
Didn't just become friends. Life looked at us, laughed, and said, yeah, they need each other. And honestly, it was right. Because somehow you showed up at the exact moment I didn't even realize I needed someone.
She's clearly and obviously trying to champion their romance as a good thing, and again, this romance is a part of her politics. This is something that she's promoting out to the world as an example for other white women in the United States of America, because she is a champion of an open borders agenda. And again, while a lot of people are snickering, while some people are laughing about this, I find no joy in this particular story, because yeah, you would want somebody to learn a lesson, and some lessons need to be learned the hard way, but this woman was murdered. An American was murdered by a third worldist in the nation of Ireland that should have never been in that nation due to the fact that the West is embracing suicidal empathy, and she adopted that ideology personally, and she put her own child at risk. What if this guy would have kidnapped the daughter when he fled this particular country? What if he would have attacked her because she was present at the time? She was 13 years old, and therefore she is somebody that, you know, could be a witness, could be a threat to him after he beat this woman to death. That is absolutely horrific, and the fact that this woman ended up putting her daughter in that situation for one big virtue signal is reprehensible behavior. But again, it doesn't justify the actions of this guy killing her. It doesn't make it a good thing. It's a story that we definitely should be teaching to people, that you should definitely learn from, because the idea that incompatible values is just some kind of right-wing talking point is absurd. These kind of honor killings are common in the cultures that these people come from.
How's the food?
It's hard to believe that in the middle of record inflation,
Wow.
Mint Mobile is actually lowering prices. Every plan,
Kind of
even
lower
on
this ad.
Absolutely delicious. Alhamdulillah.
Now again, a lot of these videos
Alhamdulillah.
look like they're cute TikToks and all that, but they have an eerie sense to them now that we know that this guy very likely is the murderer of this woman. But I also want to point out for you guys out there in the audience that the Irish police, they're actually covering this up. They're not releasing the description of this individual. Some of the reporting alludes to vague misogyny and violence against women, and this is while this person is on the loose, is a fugitive. And again, this woman's 13-year-old daughter daughter is left without a mother. She was in a single mother household, and essentially they had no interest in actually reporting this accurately in the press, even when, again, this guy is a fugitive from law enforcement. He immediately hopped a plane to Turkey. Obviously, he's planning on being protected there, and probably he'll make his way back to his home country, wherever that is. Although I do want to point out that even that is being withheld from the public because they don't want us to know where this guy actually comes from. Again, this guy who claimed to be an asylum seeker.
I mean, that's the usual, right? That's just standard fare for the UK.
Who wanted to join a European society, a modern society, ended up murdering this woman and taking off, despite the fact that she provided everything that he could have wanted, and again was so off guard against him that she didn't even worry about bringing her child around him. Again, these posts in hindsight are incredibly sad. It's all about, oh, people are saying his wife is hot, and he's like, you're my wife, and all this stuff. And again,
Honestly, there are way too many stories. No, not that specifically, but this.
Want us to know where this guy actually comes from. Society, a modern society, ended up murdering this woman, and again was so off guard against him that she didn't even worry about bringing her child around.
Unfortunately, there are just too many cases of that. Too many people leave their children with complete strangers who, for some reason or other, they just blindly trust.
Again, these posts in hindsight are incredibly sad. It's all about, oh, people are saying his wife is hot, and he's like, you're my wife, and all this stuff. And again, I will remind you, there is a child involved in this particular case, a child that was put in danger in a foreign land by this woman because she decided to allow this foreigner, this third worldist, into her life. And again, we don't know as of right now, despite the fact that Ireland is a largely English-speaking country, and they could easily put out the speculated motivations, what the reason why this guy ended up turning on her. Why did Ahmed, or whatever the hell his name is, do what he did? And I can only speculate that there is a possibility that it could involve the 13-year-old girl, because this woman ignored every possible red flag about this guy, about his origin point, about his culture and his behavior. She embraced all of it, and they were heard yelling at each other the night that she was killed. So one has to ask the question, what would actually make this woman cross the line and be weary of this person? And you would hope that maybe harm to her child would be that point, although I'm hopeful that that is actually not the case, because more victimization of that 13-year-old girl is not an acceptable outcome. It is not something that we should allow, but the Irish police should be held to an account. And by the way, the reporting from them that they're worried about this being taken up by Americans and being used as propaganda against foreigners, I mean, get a load of this line from the Irish Times article about this murder. Because Carney was a US citizen and the suspect was from the Middle East with permission to remain permanently in the Republic, the Garda are concerned that the killing may be seized upon by US far-right and political figures intent on stirring racial tensions in the Republic. So Ireland lets a Muslim immigration scammer into their country. He turns out to be violent, and the number one concern after he murders somebody is how American far-right political figures might react, because, you know, they might be intent on stirring up some racial tensions. Who's gonna tweet about this? Who's gonna make a YouTube video about this is the true concern, not the killer that's on the loose that you refuse to describe to the public before you knew he got on a plane, because guess what? He could have been caught. He could have been captured, but you didn't want that information out there, because what if somebody sent a mean tweet? Is the Norm Macdonald meme where essentially a Muslim does something horrible and horrific, and we all should be concerned about Islamophobia first and foremost.
Can't say my friend's name, but he said his biggest fear is that ISIS or some terrorist group like that would get a hold of a dirty bomb and explode it over a major city within the United States and kill tens of millions of people. Because then the blowback against innocent Muslims would be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
I love how they just go along with it, like, yeah, obviously, yeah. It would be the case. This freaking clip never gets old, unfortunately.
All right, let's do some jokes.
How long ago was this? Like 10, 15, 20 years ago? How long ago was this?
So yeah, while I don't take any joy in this, and I don't think people should take joy in this, the fact is, this is a teachable moment. This is a lesson that people really need to harp on. They really need to emphasize. Jamie Carney's story should be used to undermine every single belief that she advocated for in her real life, because this is the consequence of churning on all that intuition that you built up over the years, all that preference for a normal society that is like one of your own, and people who participate in that normal society versus an outside society, all that nonsense about cultural relativism or ethical relativism. This needs to be used as an example to rebuke that, because it's reprehensible. And again, the Irish government allowing this guy to escape, not releasing a description, doing everything to cover up this story from becoming an international news story, they should be named and shamed by the United States of America, because whatever you want to say about Jamie Carney, she was a citizen of this nation, and yeah, they have a duty to actually protect our citizens abroad in the same way that Irish citizens would be expected to be protected in the United States of America. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias. You can support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a white woman who decided to date an Arab refugee only to be murdered by him. Till next time. By the way, he's a fake refugee.
My Bluetooth gold just kicked in. Sir, that is always an immediate yes for me. My husband has
It just ended. Why didn't he explain? Yeah.
The printer was not pulled away.
The who?
The ground door.
Oh, the What is this one about?
In 1953, the astronomer Fred Hoyle had a problem. He was studying how stars make different elements in their cores, and he realized...
This video is by Science Peter or Petter, I don't know. But it caught my attention, so I just clicked on it.
...that there's much more carbon in the universe than there should be.
It's titled The Most Controversial Idea in Physics.
Stars fuse hydrogen into helium and then helium into beryllium-8. That part is chill. But to get carbon, you need to fuse 3 helium...
Did he really say that?
Part is chill. But to get carbon, you need to fuse 3 helium...
Just because he said that part is chill, I don't even want to watch this video anymore.
Nuclei together. But beryllium-8 is really unstable. It falls apart in about 10 to the negative 16th of a second. That's 1/10 quadrillionth of a second. So the third helium nucleus has to fuse with the beryllium in that fraction of a second, and when you run the numbers, the reaction is far too slow. So according to nuclear physics, stars should make almost no carbon. But clearly they do. carbon is the 4th most abundant element in the universe. You and I are made out of carbon. Hoyle knew that we were missing something, and predicted that there had to be an excited energy state, a resonance, sitting near 7.68 mega electron volts, which would vastly increase the chances of 3 helium nuclei coming together to fuse into carbon. He was visiting Caltech at the time, and he asked his experimentalist colleagues to look for this resonance. And they found it at 7.65 mega electron volts, 0.5% off from Hoyle's prediction. It is now known as the Hoyle resonance. And if we shift the Hoyle resonance up by just a few percent, stars make essentially no carbon. Shift it down by a similar amount, and they make carbon, but barely any oxygen. It's like the dial is set to exactly where it needs to be to produce both carbon and oxygen, which are so essential for life.
You took your hoodie off. Now what? Around your waist like a tourist? Or over your shoulders like a French sailor? This is the...
What people don't realize is that the lack of a resonance in oxygen stops all of that carbon being converted into oxygen. There's this balance between a resonance occurring in carbon and a lack of a resonance in oxygen means that we've built up that useful carbon atom in the universe.
And when you look closely at the laws of physics, you keep finding numbers that look dialed in, values where a small change would mean no chemistry, no complexity, no stars or galaxies, or us. It's weird. It turns up in so many places, and the explanations are, well, we'll get to that. When you look at the laws of physics, there are the equations, and in those equations, there are constants, like this is Newtonian gravity, and this is the general theory of relativity, and they predict how things fall to the ground, how planets move around the sun, etc., etc., except that they don't. Not without this constant.
Throughout all of our laws of physics are these numbers, right? The fundamental constants. And the thing is that the mathematics of physics is sterile until you know those constants. And the only way that we get those constants is by asking nature. So I could give you Newton's law of gravitation, right? But there's no way you can calculate the orbit of the moon, how long it's going to take, etc., until you know how big G is.
The big G in these equations is the strength of gravity, the universal gravitational constant. In our universe, it's around 6.674 times 10 to the negative 11 meters cubed per kilogram per second squared. And you can't get this number from the theory. It's not something that can be derived. It had to be measured, which Henry Cavendish first did in 1798. He suspended...
The way he speaks is strange. That's what's throwing me off about this video.
Two small lead spheres from a torsion wire inside of a sealed shed and watched the wire twist as two 350-pound lead balls pulled the small spheres towards them. The force he was measuring was about the weight of a dust speck, so the signal was so faint that he had to watch it through a telescope from outside the shed, because his own body heat would have stirred up the air so much and swamped the signal from gravity. And by measuring how much the wire twisted, he was able to figure out the strength of gravity. There's an amazing video about this experiment by Steve Mould, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you really should. Hey, you might have noticed something. Units. The meters, the seconds, the kilograms, they're all human inventions and are arbitrary. And you're right. But what isn't arbitrary are the ratios between the constants. The mass of a proton and the mass of an electron are also constants that we had to measure. And a proton has a mass that's 1,836 times greater than that of an electron. And it doesn't matter what units you are measuring in.
And of course, the actual value depends on the units that you use, but you can express combinations of constants in dimensionless ways.
So there are about 30 of these constants, these dials. They aren't set by any of our theories, so in theory, they could be different numbers. So the obvious question is, what if they were different numbers? What happens when you start turning these dials? So, let's turn some dials. In our universe, neutrons are heavier than protons by 1.29 MeV, which is about 0.14% of a neutron's mass, or 2.5 electron masses. The difference in their mass is tiny. In our universe, a free neutron can decay into a proton, but a free proton is stable. And this is really important, because if a proton was heavier than the neutron, the proton would decay into neutrons. This means hydrogen atoms would decay. Protons would capture their electrons and turn into neutrons. A universe without even hydrogen, let alone the rest of the periodic table, is likely very, very boring. Just endless neutrons doing basically nothing. Another dial that we can mess with is the strength of the strong force, the fundamental force that keeps atoms together. The first step in the chain that powers the sun is fusing 2 protons into deuterium. Deuterium is bound by just 2.2 mega electron volts. It's barely holding on. Weaken the strong force by just a few percent and deuterium falls apart, and the fusion chain never gets started. Fusion does not get started. The thing that makes stars, stars. The stars that make every element of the periodic table inside them. The stars that burn out and scatter their heavy elements across the universe. The stardust that we're made of. Those stars. If the strong force was just a few percent weaker, we'd have no stars.
This is what happens to a working man's legs when he wears one pair of compression socks every shift for 30 days straight.
And what you rapidly find is that it's easy to kill a universe. And what I mean by that is you can end up with universes that are definitely not going to be habitable. You rob them of the key thing that we think is important about life, and that's complexity to encode information, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so long story short, the universe is a very complex thing that has been dial tuned to absolute ridiculous specifications. So this kind of becomes a theory within within people who believe that the universe was created by an intelligent being or force.
The question then turns to is then, okay, we appeared to live in a universe where we've got constants that allow us to be here, and is that telling us something? Is there something underlying about the nature of the universe? Because we live in a universe that seems to be in some sense special.
We can also mess with gravity.
The thing is also the thing is that not only is the universe like highly specifically tuned to insane levels, it is also interesting that it is understandable for us. It is possible for us to understand the levels at which these aspects of the universe are tuned.
Compared to the other fundamental forces, gravity is pathetically weak, which is why a fridge magnet can beat out the pull of an entire planet. The electric repulsion between 2 protons in a nucleus is about 10 to the 36. That's a trillion times stronger than the gravitational pull between them. So why is gravity so weak compared to the other forces? Well, we don't know. But if we make it 1,000,000 times stronger, I know that sounds like a lot, but now it's 10 to the 30 instead of 10 to the 36, is still so much weaker than the other forces. Well, in that universe, stars will live for about 10,000 years and not 10 billion. Likely not enough time for complexity or life to arise. Okay, let's just mess with one more constant. Please indulge me. In 1929, Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe was expanding. But we have stuff in this universe, and the stuff being acted upon by gravity should be getting pulled in. So the thinking was that the faraway galaxies flying away from us should be slowing down. But measuring this is really tricky. It took another 70 years for us to find this answer. Here's how we did it. In our universe, we have this particular kind of supernova called a Type 1a supernova, which occurs when a white dwarf sucks in the matter from another star that it's orbiting next to. And at a certain point, around 1.44 solar masses, known as the Chandrasekhar limit, the electron degeneracy pressure that's keeping the whole structure up gives out. The details are interesting and complex as usual, and I'll get to it in another video, but what matters here is that these stars explode at basically the same brightness, so you can use them as standard candles. This is what astronomers call them. And the brightness of an object follows the inverse square law. A candle that is twice as far away is only a quarter as bright. So if you know how bright the thing that you're measuring actually is compared to what you measure it to be, you can figure out the distance. And you can measure how fast something is moving away from you by seeing how the light is redshifted. The light waves that are moving away from you faster get stretched out more. In the late 1990s, two teams, the Supernova Cosmology Project, led by Sol Perlmutter out of Berkeley, and the High-Z Supernova Search Team, led by Brian Schmidt out of Canberra, were using this method to measure the rate of the expansion of the universe. But Type 1a supernovae are rare, so how did they find them? Well, they photographed thousands of galaxies, and then they came back weeks later, photographed them all again, and had a computer subtract one image from the other. If you see a new bright spot appear, it might be a 1a supernova. And the results they got were very surprising. So surprising that they thought they made a mistake. The rate of expansion of the universe wasn't slowing down. It was speeding up. The cosmological constant was positive. There is something that is pushing the universe apart, not just counteracting the pull of gravity, but overpowering it. We now call it dark energy, and we're still not sure what it is. In 2011, Perlmutter, Schmidt, and Rees won the Nobel Prize. But the history of the cosmological constant goes back more than 100 years. Back in 1917, Einstein had a problem. His own equations insisted that the universe should be expanding or contracting, but everyone knew that it had to be static and eternal. So he added a term to the equations by hand, a kind of anti-gravity built into space itself, tuned precisely to hold everything still, the cosmological constant. Hey, quick side note, there's a story that people say that Einstein referred to his addition of the cosmological constant as his biggest blunder. And we actually don't have first-hand sources of him saying that. There is a book by George Gamow from 1970 and an article from 1956, and also maybe a couple of other scientists, a couple of other physicists that have heard him say something like that. We don't know if he called it his biggest blunder, but we do know that he hated it. In a letter to Georges Lemaître, he wrote, "Since I had introduced this lambda term, I had always a bad conscience. I had found it very ugly indeed that the field law of gravitation should be composed of two logically independent terms, which are connected by addition. I cannot help to feel it strongly, and I am unable to believe that such an ugly thing should be realized in nature."
Yeah, the issue is it was just kind of like a tiny little patch note, like a little like aside, like a random just band-aid over the entire thing, so it just felt very strange. I can imagine.
Which is a shame for Einstein, because such an ugly thing is realized in nature. The cosmological constant exists, and it seems fine-tuned.
Pay attention, because this right here, the buy one get one free deal on Vanish holsters, is soon going to be a little bit pricier for you. That's right, prices finally are going up. We just have a few more weeks of this special where you can get it right now for the special price on the next page. And after that, we'll be hiking up.
No.
Anyway, dark energy, what could it be? Well, there's an obvious candidate. Empty space isn't truly empty. Take a box, get rid of every atom, every particle, and then cool it to absolute zero. Quantum field theory says that vacuum is still not empty. There are virtual particles and antiparticles popping up, buzzing with energy. Exactly the kind of thing that could potentially push space apart.
So we know that there is this underlying field of energy in the universe which over the last 5 billion years has come to dominate and is driving the expansion of the universe faster and faster. So this dark energy discovered at the end of the 90s. And when you do your calculation of quantum field theory about how much dark energy you expect, the amount that we have is a teeny sliver compared to what there could be. Right? It's 1 part in 10 to the 120. Some ridiculous number.
The theory predicts that the vacuum energy of empty space should be 10 to the 120 times bigger than what we measure in our universe. If dark energy is the energy of empty space, which would make sense, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. It has been called the worst prediction in the history of physics. But this dark energy is also fine-tuned, 100 times more than what we measure in our universe, and galaxies don't form, or only very small ones.
And you can rapidly see that if you make it too large, then the universe would be born, and then all the matter in the universe would be spread out such that it would be completely diluted, that you'd never form stars, never form galaxies, etc. So you could potentially wind the amount of dark energy up by a factor of, let's say, 100. Okay? Now you might say, oh, 100? That sounds huge, right? A factor of 100 larger. But a factor of 100 in 10 to the power of 120 is still next to nothing, right? It's a small volume. So there is a little bit of give in there, but compared to the potential range, right, there it's tiny. So instead of a big galaxy like the Milky Way that you have today, you end up with these small, compact little blobs of galaxies. And they are not good places for life, because you get supernova in there, you get black holes in there, you get all kinds of stuff going on in a small volume, which, is part of the reason why the center of our Milky Way is not a good place for life. It's too much going on in too small a volume. So I say a factor of 100, but the volume is probably smaller than that.
One of the things that I find wild here is that Steven Weinberg predicted a positive cosmological constant back in 1987, a decade before we had the measurement of it. He reasoned that because we exist and that galaxies are pretty big, we must live in a universe where there's a small but non-zero amount of dark energy, a few times more than the density of matter, which is about what we measured. I find this paper to be remarkable because it uses the fact that we exist to make a prediction about the universe. Weinberg's prediction is based on the existence of us and of galaxies, and so the value of the cosmological constant must be low enough for galaxies to form. And this prediction ended up being basically right. I mean, how cool is that? But it's not just the constants of nature that allow for complexity to arise. We can mess with some other knobs too, for example, the initial conditions. Our universe started in a very, very low entropy state. This is the whole second law of thermodynamics thing, that over time entropy goes up, things spread out, they become mixed. This is why we have the arrow of time. Another way of saying low entropy is saying high available energy, the ability to do complex, interesting stuff. If the universe was born in this high entropy state, you don't get complexity. Why is the initial state, why are the initial conditions of the universe such a low entropy state? Why was it this way? This is super weird.
Our universe was born in a state where matter was smoothly distributed, so it had the potential to collapse and clump together into stars and then into galaxies. So it was born in a low entropy state. It was born with lots of possible energy. But if the universe had been born instead with all of the matter clumped together and locked into black holes, well, all of that gravitational energy is gone, right? You can't do anything really with black holes. You can bring them together, but what are you going to do with that? One of the things that we take for granted is the entire existence of the arrow of time. Why does time point in one direction? It doesn't have to. There is nothing in the equations of relativity that tells you which direction time should run in. Can you imagine physics if we had time running in both directions? That is possibly one of the biggest fine-tuning.
Also, the dimensions that we live in, 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, are conducive to complexity. In 2, everything's really boring, and in 4, well, orbits don't really work. And I can't even imagine what 2 dimensions of time would look like, let alone more.
I mean, why 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time? There's nothing in the equations of relativity that says I can't add another minus dt squared term. I can add as many as I want, and I can do all my laws of physics. But what does that mean if you were a being in that universe with multiple dimensions of time? Right? So I can play these games, but if I want to then talk about habitability in those universes, then I've got to talk about how the laws of physics behave in those universes.
So how should we think about all of this? Well, to some degree, this is obvious, right? We're here because we're here. Out of all of the possible universes, with all of the possible settings of the dials, the only ones that ever get noticed are the ones where the dials let observers exist and do the noticing. A universe with no stars, no chemistry, no brains, has nobody in it to marvel at how dead it is. Douglas Adams, the author of
And that is why the creator wants us to revere him. That is why he wants... what is it exactly that it is called? I am not even knowledgeable enough to answer that question. Give me 2 seconds. Let everything that has the breath praise the Lord, praise the Lord. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. It seems like, due to the fact that we are able to understand these concepts and to understand that these concepts are literally out of this world and completely oddly coincidental, that we are able to live and we're able to function. Like I said, it's not just the fact that the universe is finely tuned, it's the fact that we are able to recognize just how finely tuned it is and understand it that essentially allows us to exist.
Charka's Guide wrote about the sentient puddle, where after some rain, a puddle forms, gains sentience, and thinks to itself.
If you sit on the toilet, bear down.
Really? That's what he thought to himself? If I sit on the toilet, it's a puddle, he can't sit on the toilet.
This is an interesting world I find myself in. An interesting hole I find myself in. Fits me rather neatly, doesn't it? In fact, it fits me staggeringly well. Must have been made to have me in it. So maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it's just we're here, and that's it. And stop asking questions. And that just doesn't feel satisfying to me. It doesn't feel scientific. Throughout the whole history of science, the stop asking questions, things are the way they are, that approach hasn't been very successful. Being painfully, annoyingly curious has been. So maybe there's a deeper theory of physics that we're missing, that explains why the constants are the way they are, why the initial conditions are the way they are, that explains the 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, etc., etc. And that would be really cool, but it does just push fine-tuning to another level.
It does, and that's the pursuit, right? The praise, the finding, the search for what's at the very end. And that is the praise. That's the praise that we're giving. It's just a constant loop. Trying to find out where it all started, trying to find out where it all comes from, and realizing that there's always another goal.
Oh, look, physics is done. There is no freedom. These are the ways that the fundamental constants are. And you say, right, job done. Except your job isn't done.
Why?
Because the library of possible mathematics is infinite. And the mathematics used by this universe is a slim volume in an infinite library. Why did our universe choose that set of mathematics to describe the universe?
Or maybe a way to explain all of this is theological. If there are all these parameters, all of these knobs that seem so fine-tuned for life, maybe there's a fine-tuner, a creator that made this universe just so perfect for us.
So let me just explain the context of the book, right? So it's written by myself and Luke Barnes. So I am an atheist, Luke is a theist. And we have seen this argument from both sides. For Luke, he sees plenty of people saying that fine-tuning is evidence of a creator. For me, who doesn't have that particular hypothesis, that this is evidence for something deeper going on with the nature of the universe. For me...
The thing is that both lead to the same place, right? If you think that there is a fine-tuner, if you think there is a creator, well, then you want to understand who that is, and so you go deeper. If you think that there is just in some kind of strange, odd rule inside of the universe that is sort of guiding things and has set things a certain way, well, then you want to go deeper to find out what that rule is.
The notion that saying if we just do more physics, we'll solve it, I don't think we do. I think we just move fine-tuning elsewhere. So for me, the thing that helps me sleep at night is the notion of the multiverse, right?
That there is an
That helps me sleep at night is the notion of the multiverse, right?
That still doesn't answer. That still doesn't answer anything, right? Sure, we have infinite possibilities, but then still, why is our possibility the one where things are just perfectly so?
There is an unfathomably large collection of other universes where the constants of nature and the initial conditions and maybe even the mathematical structures are different. Some small percentage of them allow for complexity and for life, but most don't. And we're one of the lucky ones. We live in a fortunate universe.
We have to let science play out. What we shouldn't do is let noisy people shut down the debate because they don't like a concept. Right? And
I love this.
I've seen plenty of people say, should not talk about the multiverse. That's not the way science works. Science...
Yeah, that's not how it works. You talk out all of the potential possibilities, and then you explore those possibilities. If you don't talk about the potential solutions, if you don't talk about the different theories that there are, well, then how do you test them? How do you actually advance science?
This is playing out, and we are not at the end game.
And a lot of smart people fall into these different camps. Hoyle, for example, said, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics. Martin Rees looks at the same data, and this pushes him towards the multiverse hypothesis. I don't know what to make of this. It's why this tab has been open in my brain for a decade. I don't even know how seriously to take it. Personally, I lean towards the multiverse argument because there is a lot of good reasons to take the multiverse hypothesis seriously that's independent of fine-tuning. But I just don't know. I genuinely don't know what to do with this information. I just think it's interesting and really neat and very weird. When I worked at Veritasium, we really tried to tell stories that had a clear beginning, middle, and end. The setup, the building tension, and then the resolution. Something that put a nice, neat little bow on the video. There is no bow on this video. I want to say that I'm sorry that I'm not giving you a resolution here, but I'm just not. Humanity does not know the resolutions to some massive, fascinating, consequential problems. As John Wheeler famously said, as the island of knowledge grows, so does the shoreline of ignorance. When we learn things about the universe, we end up getting more and more questions to ask, more mysteries to unlock. That's lovely. That's how science works. And I like that I've had this problem in my brain for a decade. I like that this tab is open in my brain. I also like that this is an advanced question to ask. This feels like a tremendous success of science to get to the point where we are rudely slapped in the face of how fortunate our universe seems to be, and how strange that is. I love being reminded of our insignificance and of our fortune.
The issue is that there is no insignificance. If you really are this fortunate, it's not insignificant in any way. It is essentially the fact that everything is so finely tuned and put in such like astoundingly precise order makes you astoundingly significant.
If you want to learn more about cosmological fine-tuning, you just have to read Geraint and Luke's book. It's really, really approachable and it's beautifully written. It's really, really good. As always, the reference list is in the description, including a few books that I'd recommend on the topic. And if you have a well-paying job and you find the stuff that I make to be valuable, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my Patreon. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful to share this fortunate universe with you.
What the hell is this, bro? What did I get? What kind of ad the frick is this? Okay, I have a lot of tabs open and I don't know. I can't see. The light is glaring on my monitor and I don't know which tab I'm on. I hope it's this one. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, closing that one. What? I just closed it. There we go. And a new video. I want to find out what the hell is going on with the Steam machine. I was genuinely very excited for it. I don't have a lot of money. I'm literally running my setup off of a Steam Deck. Everything you see here is off of a Steam Deck. This is just an iPad. So I was hoping the Steam machine would be affordable. It's not looking like it's affordable, and now it might not even be worth the money. So this is a video by The Fox titled "The Steam Machine is Garbage. Here's Why." From what I understand, it's not that great unless you overclock it or fine-tune it in some way. I was hoping that it would not be a difficult task to make it run, you know, as efficiently as possible, but we'll find out what's going on.
Oh boy. I'm convinced the Steam Machine is cursed. The idea of the Steam Machine for Valve is...
Is the audio out of sync? I didn't notice it with the last video.
Oh boy. I'm convinced the Steam Machine is cursed. The idea of the...
Oh, his video is out of sync. Okay. Also, he's sounding kind of quiet.
Oh boy. I'm convinced the Steam Machine is cursed. The idea of the Steam Machine for Valve is cursed. The initial batch of Steam Machines that came out didn't land at...
Yeah, he's just a little quiet. Gosh dang it. I can't bump his audio. I don't know. I don't have the know-how on how to do that. We'll just leave it be. I'll turn down. Actually, I'll turn off the other sounds in the background to make sure that he doesn't get drowned out.
And now the second version of the Steam Machine is unfortunately coming out at a time that it is pricing itself out of recommendability at all. It's sensationally hard to recommend the Steam Machine to anybody, given what it is. There are a lot of people that are rightfully excited about the Steam Machine, generally speaking, because this is a more proper entrance for Valve to have their own hardware. It just came at one of the worst times for them to release it. I have bigger problems because I know what parts are in the Steam Machine, and Valve has done an amazing job making those leftover parts from AMD truly sing. One quick thing that I do want to mention, and like as a quick pat on my back for getting it right, is around 7.
Wait, then how is it garbage? You said it made them sing. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Making those leftover parts from AMD truly sing. One quick thing that I do want to mention, and like as a quick pat on my back for getting it right, is around 7 months ago I had done a video where I had...
Alright, quick aside, I freaking hate... I don't understand how Procreate does their little line correction thing. Sometimes it's an arc, but sometimes I'm trying to do a subtle arc and it gives me a line. Is there some way that I can just disable straight lines? I don't draw straight lines anyway. You mother fricker. This is pissing me off. Where do I even find like the settings for something like that? Preferences? I'm gonna be stuck here for like 10 years trying to figure out why it's giving me straight lines and how I can get rid of the straight lines and
created my own Steam Machine using similar parts. I used a 7600 MXT. I did not cap the CUs, but what I had made with my makeshift Steam Machine and now comparing it directly to the real Steam Machine, it was alarmingly accurate. That is only for Cyberpunk. Now, Cyberpunk is a game that really demands a lot from CPU and GPU at the same time. So configuring the CPU as much as I did, especially power-wise, really helped align it as well as possible. My results for Returnal are a bit different because Returnal is going to lean harder on GPU, not so much on CPU. The CPU is going to be like waiting around most of the time. So those 4 extra CUs I had on the 7600 MXT will show a difference from my particular Steam Machine that I made, which is about 10%, 12% better than what the Steam Machine actually is with its 28 CUs. So generally speaking, overall, that video that I had done 7 months ago was pretty spot on, given that allowance for any GPU bound game will show that 12% better performance. So it was a very good approximation of what I had done at the time. Obviously, there have been further enhancements to just regular stuff. So Mesa had further enhancements for ray tracing. We had the DMEM stuff from Natalie Vach, who did all the memory group stuff for VRAM so that you can really make sure you maximize the VRAM part of that. That particular part of it wasn't in that video that I had done. And there's a lot of things that Valve has done to really make the Steam Machine pretty bulletproof from users accidentally setting settings that would effectively make a game unusable. So there are parts where if you were to purposely try to make the game use more than it could, like in this particular instance, Doom the Dark Ages, I'm maxing out everything. VRAM usage is 9 gigabytes, which is clearly 1 gigabyte over what the Steam Machine is capable of doing. However, it is still running. It doesn't run very well, but it's running. It doesn't outright crash, which is honestly a good thing. I don't want games to be crashing. This was something that I was kind of worried about, was what happens if a user accidentally sets a setting unbeknownst to them that would basically force the game to no longer render for them. And then whenever they try to go back into it, they can't even jump into the settings to fix it unless a game notices that it's crashing and says, hey, we noticed we're crashing. Do you want to enable safe mode and all that other stuff? But not every game does that. So I'm really pleased with a lot of the things that Valve has done to make the Steam Machine and the parts of the Steam Machine really sing much better than it has any business being as good as it is. Ultimately, there are two core components that are hard for me to decouple when talking about the Steam Machine. The first part is that I had known that it was going to be closer to a PlayStation 5 than any other current PC. So one of the things that I'm doing when testing, at least so far as benchmarks that you're going to see in this video, is we'll be directly comparing the AMD BC250, which is effectively the PlayStation 5 chip with 2 of the CUs disabled, 2 of the CPUs disabled, so it only has 6-core CPU.
These curves are pissing me off. I'm clearly doing a curve. What do you mean that's a line? That's an arc. Are you seeing this? Okay, it understood there. Yeah. That's a curve. Okay. That makes sense. How is that a line? How was that a straight line, bro? Are you kidding me? That's an arc. It still thinks that's a line. All right, well, you. Oh, wow. Okay, I understood that one. That's a freaking arc. What is it that I'm supposed to do to make it think it's a curve? That was closer. Ugh. Nope. I was thinking maybe if I just kind of like curve it at the end, maybe it'll help it understand, but it doesn't. That's really annoying. Anywho.
And I have been able to enable all 40 CUs on the GPU, which the PS5 only has 36. So I'm able to push those 40 CUs to 2.15 gigahertz, so a little bit less than the 2.23 gigahertz than the PS5 can go to. But generally speaking, GPU grunt-wise, it actually is fairly impressive. One thing that's super cool, and super cool is it's a problem, on Doom of the Dark Ages, when I tried running it, it would try to just use VRS. The PS5 is not RDNA 2. It's actually just brute forced RDNA 1. It's RDNA 1 brute forced to be like RDNA 2. So it has all of the grunts to be like RDNA 2, but it doesn't have the feature set that RDNA 2 has. So one of the things you have to do is actually stub a VRS, do like with null VRS, stub those Vulkan extensions so that they know up, and that is how you can get a few games running that may try to engage VRS when it otherwise can't, which is kind of cool and confirms what the PS5 actually is. But I say that more to caveat that I don't really recommend this for people generally. I paid $250 for this complete setup with case, power supply, fan, 128 gigabyte SATA SSD, and the board itself. So very inexpensive, but you're going to have to tinker a whole bunch with this to make it worthwhile. And that is why I generally don't recommend it. The other part is that I've seen the price for this raise rapidly as of late, and paying over $300 for this when you're going to have to tinker with it like crazy, I really, really don't recommend it. It's something that you're not just going to be a turnkey solution. It's just going to work perfectly for you. You're going to find instances where things don't run and then you have to go jump in the logs and fix it. So keep in mind that I'm looking at this through the lens of this is something that I could replicate a PS5 with and compare it to the Steam Machine. And the reason why I want to do that is if we take a look at it through the lens of the PS5 started as a $500 machine in 2020. And if you were to, at the time, say, hey, what do you think a machine in 2026, 6 years later, and double the cost would be, which is what the Steam Machine is, I submit that most people would think that it would be sensationally better. And what we're actually...
That would be ignoring all of, the economics of the past 5 years or so.
Really seeing is not the case. So that's one part of this. The other part is that the Steam Machine is a fixed hardware device. You have no upgrade path for it whatsoever. And when we compare it to the current generation of what AMD has, like the 9070 XT, that blows it out of the water, and it's not even that expensive of a GPU. It's expensive of a GPU maybe 20 years ago, would have been a high-end GPU 20 years ago, but today it's decidedly a mid-range GPU. We have GPUs that are $2,500 that are high-end GPUs, and the 9070 XT can be routinely found for $600 now, and the 9060 XT was on sale as of the making of this video. I do want to highlight a few positive things about the Steam Machine. The first one being that even with the AMD hardware that is found in the Steam Machine, that it is not the most best components AMD has to offer. They're decidedly last generation and the lowest bin parts that could be found in there. Unarguably, with all of the software enhancements that Valve has been doing for Steam Deck and have later been found in what is the Steam Machine now, this hardware is doing far better than it has any business being able to achieve. With regards to what it is able to do and frame consistency and frame pacing and everything and how smooth and consistent just playing games on it is a testament to everything Valve has done there. The second bit is that even though it's RDNA 3, we do have an emulation path to go ahead and use FSR 4. And the FSR 4 implementation does work reasonably well. When we go from 4K native, like in Cyberpunk here, and then put in FSR 4 Ultra Performance, there is indeed a bit of a penalty that is paid for going into 8 to enable FSR 4. So you do need to use effectively extreme sub-resolutions. But when you do that, what you are getting out of this hardware is much, much better than it ever could have to begin with. So while noting the positive things about this, I do want to now just branch into the benchmark side of this, where we're going to be comparing against the PlayStation 5, effectively the AMD BC250 versus the Steam Machine, and see what that's capable of. And then we're going to look at 4K output and what the 9070 XT is capable of, and kind of talk about what that means, and not look at it as direct comparisons, but we have to take a step back and take a look at the long view of what that actually means. The only thing that I do want to mention is that this Steam Machine that I have has 64 gigabytes of RAM, 232 gigabytes sticks, so it is in dual channel. There is no system RAM problem that we have here, so it's going to operate as best as it possibly can. So with that known, let's get into the benchmarks. This part of the video, it's going to be a little bit more on the fun side. We're going to be taking a look at the Steam Deck OLED, comparing it to the Steam Machine, just to verify the claims from Valve, saying the Steam Machine was 6 times better than the Steam Deck. And then I had also done a video months ago where I had kind of created my own Steam Machine with similar parts. What's crazy here is if we take a look here on my Cyberpunk results, they are pretty much right on the money. I mean, like, alarmingly on the money. These things are practically the same. So that's really cool results. If anyone cares, I can share the direct results, the direct captures themselves, so that, you know, the people say, that's bogus. You're just manipulating. No. This is actual data. These are actual benchmarks months apart from each other, which is super cool to see. So if we take a look at the Steam Deck OLED, in this particular instance, Cyberpunk 2077 is only going to be about 5 times better on the Steam Machine versus the Steam Deck, because I'm doing the Steam Deck OLED here, but generally speaking, the Steam Deck and Steam Deck OLED, especially at 15 watt, perform relatively the same. So when we take a look at this, you have to remember that Cyberpunk 2077, it does stress CPU cores, and it is a very multi-core title, which is probably the reason my Steam Machine is matching up so nice here, because I did park cores, especially the hyper-threaded core of that correctly in software, so that it could match what the Steam Machine should be. So what we are seeing here is probably the CPU limitations that I imposed on my Steam Machine and why that's lining up as well as it is. So in this particular instance, CPU-wise, it is not 6 times better. It's really just the GPU that is 6 times better. So when we take a look at the next result, like Returnal, which I often show and talk about, it is a very stressful GPU test, and we'll highlight that a bit better. So let's take a look at that next. This is, again, one of the last benchmarks that I did with my Steam Machine versus what was on the Steam Deck. And I had just shown off that this is where we get to that 6x figure, where when I had shown it off, it was like 6.5 times better on my particular showing. Again, you can actually see this when I show it off in my previous video, because I take a look at this one just to kind of say that, yes, it does show that it's 6 times better. But when we take a look at the Steam Machine itself, remember my Steam Machine has 32 CUs active on the 7600 MXT. So I have a little bit more GPU to play with. Thus, the Returnal is going to show off better results like we're seeing right here. So the reality is that we're 5.6 times, we're almost 6 times better than the Steam Deck in these particular settings. So it's kind of true that the 6 times figure that we have there from Valve, generally speaking. So I would say that it's kind of an okay thing to just kind of say generally, but don't expect a 6x betterness on Steam Deck versus Steam Machine always, because it's really very just GPU oriented.
Taco Bell's Lutz Boxes. Choose the $5, $7, or $9 box now with new fajita street
Taco Bell. Get out of here. I don't even need Taco Bell. Jeez, was that ad loud or what? Jeez, I forgot to go back.
On Steam Deck versus Steam Machine always, because it's really very just GPU oriented. Now we're getting into the main crux of my argument with these particular benchmarks that I'm going to be showing you right here. I try to keep this simplified. I had other data, but I'm going to just simplify this because my main crux of my argument is that the Steam Machine is effectively just a bit better than a PlayStation 5. Now, what I have right here, this AMD BC250, this is the PlayStation 5 2 chip that has been put onto other hardware. It was initially for Bitcoin miners. Then when Bitcoin miners finished up with them, effectively they were just getting rid of them. This is e-waste by all sense and purpose, but you can buy it. You can get it pretty cheap. I got the entire parts. Like I got the parts, I got the case, I got the power supply, the power button, everything for $250. So what you're seeing here is $250 my cost to compare it to the Steam Machine, which is $1,050. That's basically the crux of my argument. We have the Steam Machine that came out in 2026 for $1,050 versus the PS5 that came out in 2020 for $500. The PS5 is worth more money now, but you would anticipate that 6 years worth of progress would show a large generational gap in performance, and that's not the case. So what we have here is just...
That's due to the cost, right? Unfortunately, that is why the Steam Deck isn't more powerful, and that is also why it is so much more expensive. I mean, I don't think Valve was trying to make a super high-end PC, because basically all of the people who want a super high-end PC already know how to build one or have the money to buy one pre-made, right? And they're really just trying to reach that market that's somewhere between a console and a PC. Those who want to leave their console behind, leave behind that that closed ecosystem where you really can't buy games, you know, outside of either retail stores or the online shops for PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo, but who don't have the know-how on getting started with PC hardware. The people who want to integrate themselves into the Steam ecosystem but don't have either the means or the know-how on PC building.
A really poor showing. Even though the Steam Machine is doing better.
Hey, yo, what the freak? Didn't they just give us an ad?
That's basically the crux of my argument. We have the Steam Machine that came out in 2026 for $1,050 versus the PS5 that came out in 2020 for $500. The PS5 is worth more money now, but you would anticipate that 6 years worth of progress would show a large generational gap in performance, and that's not the case. So what we have here is just a really poor showing. Even though the Steam Machine is doing better in a lot of instances, which we're going to show, sometimes it doesn't. So when we take a look at Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p native Steam Deck preset, 1080p without ray tracing is pretty much what you are going to try to get the Steam Machine running at. You aren't going to be doing much more. You will be using FSR if you can to have a sub resolution down to 720p, trying to upscale to 4K, or 1080p upscaling to 4K. But the end result is that your actual render resolution is definitely going to be in 720p, 1080p today. It's not going to be much more than that, especially when ray tracing gets involved. So when we take a look at averages, the Steam Machine is about 30% better than the PlayStation 5. And when we take a look at 1 percentile, which is very important, it's around 60% better. That is not fantastic for 6 years and double the cost. It is better. And I think people are going to be just fine with that performance when they're actually playing stuff. But as time goes on, especially a year from now and 2 years from now, when the next generation of RDNA comes out, I suspect people are going to have some buyer's remorse. But let's take a look at some more examples. The next game we'll compare the Steam Machine against to effectively the PS5 is Deus Ex Mankind Divided at 1080p native with DirectX 11 Ultra settings. On averages, the Steam Machine is about 4% better. However, 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile is where we get bigger bonuses here, and we're about 50% better than the AMD BC250 or the PlayStation 5. Next game that we'll be comparing is Doom the Dark Ages at 1080p, TAA native, and low settings. What's pretty interesting here, and again, I would have already commented on this previous in the video, is that Doom the Dark Ages will try to run on the AMD BC250. If you try to put with Cache OS or whatever, it's going to try to actually engage VRS, variable rate shading. But the PS5 is not actually RDNA 2 hardware. It is just beefed up RDNA 1 to resemble RDNA 2, but it does not have RDNA 2 features. So all the previous news about like PS5 not being full fat RDNA 2 is actually correct. It is not the same. So when we actually try to run it, you actually fail. So you have to actually stub the VRS part of that so that it doesn't actually do anything on the Vulkan side of things. So it basically just does like null ops it. But when we get it running, this is what we have when we see now VRS is not running on either one of these. So when we take a look on averages, the PS5 is about 3% better on averages. However, we are 30% better on 1 percentile and about 30% better on 0.2 percentile to the Steam Machine. Again, not really fantastic results for especially the price difference that you can get the AMD BC250 for. Well, I paid $250 for it. It has bumped up in price a bit. I really wouldn't recommend paying more than like $300-ish for the BC250 because it's a bit of a tinkerer's machine. But when it comes to the value of what you're getting out of this, the Steam Machine really isn't showing up very well. Here's a game that initially...
But where's the value? That's what I want. That's what I want to know. I want to know what the value is. I want to know, okay, on current hardware, what is more worthwhile for my money? Is it, am I better off just buying a PS5? Am I better off buying the Steam Machine? Am I better off just building my own PC? I don't know how to build a PC.
It launched on the PlayStation 5. It's God of War Ragnarok. This is 1080p native with high settings. And once again, if we take a look at our averages, we're about 4% better. That's typically going to be the case because when we have a higher frequency that we can go to across 28 CUs on Steam Machine, but we have 40 CUs at a lower frequency, we can actually meet up with it. Not to mention that we have just raw bandwidth on the AMD BC250, whereas the Steam Machine has to leverage some other means to get up there. If we take a look at our 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile, it's about 20% better than what our AMD BC250 is. This is Resident Evil Requiem at 1080p using FSR native with low settings. And compared between the two, the Steam Machine is pulling ahead quite nicely here. Not huge gains. We have about 30% on averages. Yeah, 30% averages and 50%. Yeah, 50% better on 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile, generally speaking. Again, this is pretty much where we're always coming to. Either we're getting very closer to averages and 1 percentile, or we can see whatever benefits you'll get over Zen 4 over Zen 2, where that'll be very apparent and we'll have exceedingly better 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile. This is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, 1080p native and low settings. The Steam Machine wins here. We're at 100 FPS average on the Steam Machine versus 81 on the AMD BC250, which is effectively the PS5. So we're 23% better on averages, around 50% better on 1 percentile, and 40% better on 0.2 percentile. So again, we see those kind of similar. Anytime that the Steam Machine's winning, that's basically the stretch of where it beats the PS5. Not for every game, but when we do, this is the kind of results that we see, nothing greater than that so far. We're going to look at one last game, which is going to be very stressful on the GPU, which is Returnal. And the last game to compare the PS5 to the Steam Machine is Returnal. It was a game that was exclusive on PS5 for a bit. This is 1080p native with epic settings, so we are pushing settings as hard as I can. There is no ray tracing here, and we're actually beating the Steam Machine on averages. We're about 4% better. Again, that same amount, right? 4% better. Whenever we go into this like very GPU constrained environment, not CPU bound. When we go into CPU bound, we show that 30% better on averages, 50% better than 1 percentile. But if it's a GPU bound problem, then the BC250, the PS5 starts showing up. We're about 4% better on averages. And if we take a look at 1 percentile, it's only 9% better on Steam Machine and only 9% better on 0.2 percentile. So again, where we are able to show up on the PS5, GPU-wise, it is very similar to the Steam Machine. The only advantage that the Steam Machine has is its CPUs, and that is only marginally better. The next set of benchmarks that we're going to be taking a look at is the Steam Machine versus the current best generation AMD GPU, which is the RDNA 9070 XT. The reason that I'm showing this is because this is what the current generation of AMD's GPU is capable of. This is not even representative of what the next generation of AMD's GPUs are capable of. And I kind of want to highlight that because I think it's very important, because the Steam Machine is available today, and RDNA 5, especially on consoles where Xbox Helix is going to be able to play PC games, is going to be using the 10700 XT on the Xbox Helix effectively. So the mid-range GPU from AMD will be on that. And that's going to be better than the 9070 XT. It's going to be a generational leap over that. So keep that in mind why I'm trying to hammer this home. So with Doom the Dark Age is 4K TAA native with low settings. We're looking around averages being around 3.5 times better, 1 percentile being 3.5 times better, and 0.2 percentile being fantastically better. It's almost comical how bad that is. Again, the reason why I'm talking about this is AMD's current best generation of AMD GPUs, the 9070 XT, is technically a mid-range GPU insofar as landscape. You could argue it's upper mid-range, but we have high-end GPUs that are $2,500, and the 9070 XT can be had for $600. I bought it for $600. It was on sale for $550 just last week. So you can get the 9070 XT for MSRP today, no problem. This is a 1-year-old GPU.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited
And I was looking for
premium
fun
wireless
ways of just freaking skipping this ad.
The next game we'll be looking at is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This is 4K native, low settings. Both the games we so far looked at 4K have been ray tracing enabled games. They are not able to run without ray tracing. The reason I want to highlight that is because as we go into the future, more and more games that will be stressing the GPU are going to be games that will always have ray tracing enabled to some degree or not. So it's just going to be a further strain on the Steam Machine. When we do 4K low settings, we're about 2.5 times better on the 9070 XT versus the Steam Machine, and that also goes for 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile. So that's a look at Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Let's take a look at another game. Here we are looking at Resident Evil Requiem. This is 4K with FSR native and low settings, and we compare the 9070 XT versus the Steam Machine. On averages, we're around 3 times better than the Steam Machine, and around 3 times better on 1 percentile and 0.2 percentile as well. So again, we're going to have that. We're having effectively on the minimum side around 3 times better when we compare the 9070 XT versus the Steam Machine. But with the next game, when we go again to a very GPU intensive test, we see an even larger degree of difference. And the last game that we'll be looking at is Returnal. This is 4K native at epic settings with no ray tracing enabled. And this is a game that I often show off because, especially on handhelds, we're very GPU limited all the time and often. They always take laptop chips and then just say that they're handheld chips. So we have very front-loaded CPU side where we can actually do a bunch on CPU, but then on GPU, it's actually really terrible. So I always love showing off Returnal because it kind of highlights how restricted we are, how starved we are on GPU. And when we take a look at the difference between Returnal at 4K native and epic settings on the 9070 XT versus Returnal,
Yo, that's looking real rough. Damn.
Returnal on the Steam Machine, averages wise, it's just a gigantic difference. Now, it's important to note here that Returnal on Steam Machine is not VRAM limited insofar as these particular settings. We did not approach the 8 gigabyte cap, or about 7.3 gigs VRAM throughout the test, and that never eclipsed it. So we don't really see any VRAM contention issues in this test at all, but that is also another consideration to have. So around 4.5 times better on averages, 3.5 times better on 1 percentile. I'm going to end it right there because I feel like that's a good look on both sides for where we are with the Steam Machine, where just comparing the Steam Machine to a 2020 machine, the PS5 at $500 versus coming out today, and then comparing it to what AMD has as their best GPU, which is effectively a mid-range GPU, and where that is. And then a year from now, when RDNA 5 comes out, the Steam Machine finds itself in a very peculiar spot. Oh boy. So now that you've seen those benchmarks, you may consider those benchmarks to not be a proper way to compare the Steam Machine. I would argue that looking at it from the two lenses, either comparing it to the previous generation of consoles, which isn't a PC and doesn't have, like, PC is a far more open platform. You're going to be able to play whatever you want. You're going to be able to have a better time overall, especially not caring about whatever provider says you can or cannot do with games. You're going to have an easier time with this. This is a PC. Having said that, I don't think it's out of bounds to compare the Steam Machine to what hardware existed for people in 2020, what they paid $500 for. So even when we get outside of the DRAM and NAND fiasco of making this 1050 as it is today, which is out of control, even with that $750 price tag that we heard floating around, it would still be on the high end of acceptable. It would be far more acceptable. It'd be like, oh, okay, not great, not terrible. But $750 compared to a $500 box and the benefits that you get over it, you'd still be like, oh man, it's 6 years later and I'm still paying more and only getting slightly better. That's where I have a hard problem with. And then on the other hand of things, when we compare it to the current generation of AMD GPUs with RDNA 4, the 9070 XT, which is a mid-range GPU. You could say it's upper mid-range if you really want, but there's $2,500 GPUs now. A $600 GPU is what mid-range is today. It destroys what this box is capable of. And you can find boxes with 9070 XTs in them for $1,400, $1,500. So yeah, you're going to spend $400, $500 more than a Steam machine, but that money would be far better. $500 more than a Steam machine, but that money would be far better spent going into a 9070 XT box. Remember, this is not upgradable. What you have.
Yeah, but that's $1,000. That's half a grand, right? A grand is 1,000, right? Am I retarded? Your money is better spent spending half a grand. Yeah, a grand is $1,000. Your money is better spent on half a grand on better PC parts. What are we talking about? The Steam machine is not for people who build PCs, and definitely not for people who have that kind of money. You're talking about $2,000.
Have here is, but that money would be far better spent going into a 9070 XT box. Remember, this is not upgradable. What you have here is fixed, and it does pour. It's lackluster in ray tracing. And as newer games come out, next generation of games start coming out, and they all have ray tracing on by default, and you cannot.
This man is just ignoring the current economics. Sure, by the time the next generation comes out, when is the next generation coming out? Is it going to be delayed due to, you know, the insane cost of hardware? Is it going to come out underpowered because, you know, hardware is very expensive, and unfortunately the consumer is not going to be able to, you know, fork the necessary amount for new gen bleeding edge hardware? What are we talking about?
Undo ray tracing, this is going to start falling behind rather fast. So when you take a look at what even the Xbox Helix, which is going to be coming next year and is effectively looking like it has the 10700 XT, the next generation of RDNA 4, but so it's going to even be better than the RDNA 4 that I already showed you in benchmarks, and it's probably going to be priced similar to what this is. Where are you? Like, how? That doesn't make any sense. I know there's a lot of people that are buying it. I know that there's a lot of people that are excited for it. For me, it's just, I am a big fan of Valve. I'm also a huge fan of Steam. Steam is my main platform on PC. It hurts me a little bit when I saw the original Steam machine and it was like, okay, it came and went. And now that the second Steam machine, especially the circumstances as such, to price this in such a way that it is completely unrecommendable, I can't help but feel that the Steam machine is cursed in some way. It just always has some cloud over it that is just going to dog it down for some reason. Hopefully, when they get to the next Steam machine, the third time's the charm. Thank you very much to my Patreon members as well as my YouTube channel members. Your support really means the world to me, guys. I hope this video was informative. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.
I don't know. There just wasn't enough information. I don't really know. I don't know what the hell just happened. I mean, yeah, the next generation of consoles might be more powerful, but do we actually have, you know, firm confirmation on that? Do we know that it's not going to be insanely priced? I mean, just logistically speaking, it would technically be cheaper cheaper than a steam machine, and it would be technically more powerful than the steam machine. But you would be locked into their ecosystem, right? Unless Project Helix does actually go through with their plan on making what is essentially a console PC hybrid. But right now, Microsoft is in a really tough spot. Xbox hasn't been making any money, and they're cutting everything studio wise. So would it be beneficial for them to release an open platform where they don't have assurance that the customers will in fact be buying directly from them? Yeah, there's just not enough information. I still don't know. Should I buy a Steam machine? I still don't know.
こんな感じで絵を完成させてしまうというのも初心者の
Alright, so this is a video by... Why are all these quiet? Okay, this one's actually because the volume was down. This is a video from Hyde channel. I actually don't remember why the hell I saved this one for later. It was kind of just like arts, do's, and don'ts. And I don't know what he's saying. Because, you know, it's in Japanese. So, can we change that? And is it going to function well? There's an English auto dub. So let's find out. It says 3 common drawing habits beginners should stop doing. Again, from Hyde channel.
I think it's common for beginners to end up drawing like this. The key point is the eyes, the eyeballs, and to draw them with an awareness of how they should look.
I always kind of struggle with that. I actually, this drawing is similar, right? We should, let me get some guides going right here, right? New layer, let's hide this layer. What kind of color can we use that will stand out easily? Cyan. So, I did try my best to make the eyeballs circular. Maybe I should just get a circle tool. What am I doing? Can I do that? I mean, that's not really a circle, it's an ellipse. There we go. Oh, come on. Can't I have it like snapped to the right dimension? Oh, there we go. Circle, please. I forgot what the hell I was doing. What, somewhere around there? I think it's about right. Yep, that's where the eyeball is resting. Sure, why not? And actually, I'm gonna go over that. Let's reduce the opacity a little bit so that it doesn't get in the way of the shape lines that we've got here. So I did in fact make a new layer, and yeah, here is the eyelid. Starts here, moves this way, and then how did he do this? Yep, wraps around like so. Actually, mine would be different because of the angle. So you would not see these, the underside over here. You would not see the underside like you do here. So mine would be more like that, probably. And then the eyelid would then continue this way. Yep, this is where the eyelash line would be the eyeliner, I guess you'd call it. That's about right. That's about right. Sure.
Hello, everyone. This is the Hyde channel. This time, I have a section called Viewer Submissions in my YouTube community, and I actually post illustrations here as well. Up until now, I've mainly reviewed illustrations submitted to my paid online salon, but since I have the opportunity, I thought I'd take this opportunity to review some of the illustrations submitted here during the summer vacation. So, without further ado, here are the reviews I'll be reviewing this time.
Oof, that's looking rough. That's looking real rough. Yeah, his edits were much better. The right one doesn't look that bad. The right one, it's simplistic enough where you can sort of like just fine tune it a little bit. But that left one has a lot of trouble.
I think these are exercises for.
I don't even know what they were doing with these guidelines though. Like here's a guideline, right? And then all of a sudden there's another guideline over here. It seems like they're just kind of adding things just cause.
Drawing faces from various angles, but they actually contain some common mistakes that beginners make. So this.
Actually, you know what? Let's do that. Let's see. What would we do different? So for the first one, the left one, it would be like this, right? That this is the top of the head, or the circular base for the head. And then I'm guessing they're looking slightly up, so something like that. And then that is a really tough angle. So why the hell am I drawing with this pen or brush or whatever? I just realized that it's making things a lot harder. Listen, kids, you don't have to do things stupid. There we go. And there we go. And then bit of an extreme angle. Just erase some of this. So they're only looking slightly up. Where would their ear actually be? Because of that extreme angle, I don't think their ear would be that far back. I think it would be about here. And then yeah, something like this. Now, obviously, I'm doing this quick. I'm not trying to spend too much time on it, so it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna look great, but because of the angle, because the angle is slightly high, this bottom line of the eye, the bottom eyelash line, is that the right word for it? The bottom lash line, sure. The bottom eyelid, there you go. The bottom eyelid is actually going to be slightly curved upward. So depending on the angles, if you're looking straight, your bottom eye line would be like this. And that's because your bottom eye line actually opens wider than your top line. So your top line isn't always, going to be super open. It might sometimes be, like that. In any case, If you're looking down, then your bottom eye line would be, you know, closer to a U shape. If you're looking straight, it might be just slightly curved downward. And if you're looking up, depending on the angle, it would be slightly curved upward. Or if you're looking up at a really extreme angle, it would be much more U-shaped. This character does not look like they're looking at an extremely high angle. Their head is not tilted up that much. But it is slightly tilted. So I think that their bottom eyelash line would be either straight or slightly curved. And the top line would definitely be curved upward at a fairly extreme angle. I like to have the tear duct. That's just how I roll. And then here, this is just the mid section of the face. That is not actually where the bridge would go. The mid section of the face is actually somewhere inside of the bridge. So the bridge would go here. Take an eraser. Yep. And then right here is where it would break up, because here you have the little bulge on the side of your tear duct. This little bit. So the corner of your bridge, your nose bridge, the section where your eyebrow ridge and your nose bridge connect, is somewhere in here, somewhere either above the eyes or somewhere right between the eyes. Normally it isn't this low at bottom eye level, at bottom lash level. It's either somewhere at top lash level or in the middle. So this is the brow ridge. This is the nose bridge. This person is a little bit more of an anime style, so I did my best, right? To make the nose angular and not too protruding. But that's just not my kind of style, so it's difficult to make it look that way. Then if you were to make nostrils, again, with this anime style, you're not going to use nostrils at all. Not likely, but if you were to do nostrils, it would be somewhere around here, at the bottom of the, the hell do you call this? You call this, come on, I have a piercing. I have a piercing there. The piercing's named after the what the hell is it called? How am I blanking on this? Septum. Oh my dog. I didn't even have to type it. But yeah, this is the septum, right? And then your nostrils would essentially come out from there. And the septum then would connect directly to the lips because of the extreme angle. So it would connect directly into that side profile of the lips. Depending on what kind of lips the character has, you know, would essentially dictate how outward or inward that profile would be. If they don't have very if they don't have very prominent lips, then the profile would actually be lessened. You wouldn't have that much of a strong connection to the septum of the nose. Now they're smiling. I'm terrible, absolutely terrible at expressions. So I'm gonna do my best. That curvature of the mouth, how it turns upward is completely unnatural. It would not do that just because of the angle that the face is at. The head is tilted back, and so what you normally see on your face as a smile, which is this, it's not usually this, right? Because your face doesn't, your face can't move that extremely. It's usually a very subtle U shape. Because the face is looking up, that U shape would be lessened. If you were looking down, the U shape would be harsher. If you're looking up, that U shape starts to turn into more of a straight line. And if you're really looking up, that smile would then turn into essentially a frown. So now I've got to figure out how this angle would affect the smile. I'm going to guesstimate that the corner of the mouth is about there. Damn, that looks ugly. And so that smile would be closer to a straight line. I'm terrible at expressions. So yeah, that looks ugly. So I'm actually going to erase some, make this a more subtle smile. The issue I have with this is that's an open smile. So now what, right? The hell do I do now? We'll think about that later. We'll think about that later. For now, bottom lip. Bottom lip, and let's finish out that chin. The chin, what the hell? The chin is usually right around this at the same protrusion level as the lips. It can be a little less or it can be a little bit more. But if you make it too little, if you make the chin protrude much less than the lips, you get a bit of a weird look. So that's why this looks off. And if you have the chin protrude way too far compared to the lips, you also get a weird look. So it's always best to keep them at a similar level of protrusion. That's why I made mine like this. So it kind of roughly matches the length of the lips. All right, and gonna clean this up a little bit. I just kind of give an indication that the mouth is open without actually making it open, because I also feel like at that angle you're not gonna be able to see it opening all that well. But I mostly did it because I suck at having open mouth smiles. I'm just bad at drawing expressions. And then I'm gonna flip this over so that I kind of understand what's going on without having to try too hard. I refresh my eyes and can see it better. Now I know that this looks dumb. Just gonna take it off. That looks better. Here you would see a little bit of the cheek folding over the eyelid. Here we are going to try our best to make the other eye. It would be here, and it would sort of mimic the shape of the other eye. because they're both at a very similar angle at that point. And then the eyelid would come around and then turn into the rest of the brow ridge. Or would it? Because now I'm looking at it from the flipped perspective, and it's looking a little ugly. Yeah, we'll keep it like that. You know what? It's a little ugly, but hey, it is what it is. Now, for the eyelid, how it connects to the brow ridge, there's a little divot here. And there's a little bit of another divot here. Now about the ear, where would the ear go? So normally the ear is connected to the corners of the eyes. So it would go about to here, but then we gotta drop it down because of the angle. So yeah, I think it would be here somewhere. And because it is a low angle, typically the earlobe would look just a little bit larger than the rest of it would just look a little larger than usual, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough. Now let's give them irises so they're not looking too weird. I think that's the issue. The eyeball was just at a really bad angle. That looks a lot better. Okay. Yeah, that kind of fixed it a little. And the pupil would be basically in the opposite corner of where the individual is looking towards. If you're looking to the left, your irises are going to become more oval shaped and your pupil is going to move closer to the right. If you're looking to the right, your pupil again becomes a little bit more oval shaped and your pupil moves slightly to the left. And it's the same for up and down. If you look up at an extreme angle, your irises become a little bit ovaled and your pupil moves lower. Now, I'm not going to give this individual hair because I'm not about to put all that effort in. This is essentially my take on that angle of the human face. And it looks alright, I guess.
This time I'll focus on reviewing what beginners should be careful of when drawing faces. Now, I have an important announcement to make. The third installment of my Colosso course is now open. In the first course we learned how to draw the whole body, and in the second course we focused on how to draw the face. But this third course is called Easy Character Detail Up Drills to Learn with Formulas and Patterns, and it goes beyond understanding the base body and delves into practical methods of expression to make characters look attractive by making full use of clothing details, lighting, and structure. If you can draw the base body but the clothes look unnatural, or if you're always drawing without much thought because the shadows are unclear, and you want to get over the worries of learning how to draw clothes and shadows from formulas and gain skills that can be applied to any character, then check out the link in the description right now. My work history is also in the description, so if you're interested, please check it out. Also, this channel provides useful information for people who are thinking of making drawing their career, such as anime, illustrators, and manga artists, so if you're interested, please subscribe to the channel and set notifications so that you can be the first to see new videos. Now, let's get started.
What the hell? Isn't that what I signed up for? Who was that, man? What the hell was going on? What was that an ad for?
So, let's take a look, starting with the face on the right. Here, the reference lines for drawing the face are faintly drawn, so let's extract them first. First, the spherical shape of the head is drawn like this, and this is the upper part of the head. Then, there are vertical and horizontal crosshairs in the center of the face, and then the jawline. The jawline is outlined like this. When drawing the head, I think they draw the outline like this and then draw the details on top of it, but since it's an illustration, I think it doesn't matter how you draw it as long as the final result is good, but for reference, I'd like to show you how I draw the reference lines for the sphere and draw the face.
Right. Quick side note on what it is that I'm doing. I'm considering erasing the inside of my outline. Just because I saw someone who had a physical art style in which their outlines were lighter. I don't know how they managed to do that. I think they were working in watercolor, but the inside of their outlines were lighter than the rims of their outline, and I thought it looked really cool. So I'm gonna try that out today. Oh, come on, play the video.
First, for the spherical shape of the head, I think you can draw it in the same way as before, but for the crosshairs that will be the reference lines for the face, I think it's better to draw them like this, so that they pass through the center of the sphere. Then, for the upper part of the head, draw a mark by cutting it off a little, and then draw the jaw there. Well, in my case, I measure the head like this, but if you compare it to the original way of measuring the head in this illustration, what's different is that, first of all, in my case, the crosshair part that passes through the center of the sphere is measured as the position of the eyebrows. When drawing a face with a three-dimensional view of the head, I think that if you draw it like this, it will be much easier to draw the face at any angle. So, there is a big difference in how the head is measured, but if you look at the original illustration with this in mind, the impression is that the top of the head is somehow large and the eyes are lowered. Of course, the eye position may be around this depending on the angle of the face. But in this illustration, the top of the head looks a little too large compared to the way the face looks. So, this time, I would like to adjust the face to match this. Since the crosshair part in the center of the face is where the eyebrows are, I think the eye position will be around here. Then, the chin will be too long, so I'll shave it down a bit and adjust it to about this size. I think that if I draw it this
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The top of his head was just too high.
way, it will be a well-balanced face when matched to the spherical shape of the head.
And it does look a lot better.
So, based on this, I'd like to draw the character's details to match the original illustration. I don't think this character is a secondary search or anything like that, so I'll draw it to match the illustration you sent me, but I'll make some minor adjustments to the design so that it's easier to follow. The hairstyle is also a bit hard to see in the original illustration, so I'll make the hair look more three-dimensional and easier to understand while making some minor adjustments to the hairstyle. And as for the area below the neck, the body is drawn quite well, but since it's a woman, I think this should be fine.
That was a woman? I thought it was a dude.
If the overall balance looks good, I'll draw.
Wait, for real?
And while making some minor adjustments to the body is drawn quite well, but since it's a woman, I think this should be fine. If the overall balance looks good, I'll draw the details inside the eyes and use this as a base to draw the face. Well, the rough draft has a fairly solid shape, so it's more or less just tracing the lines of the rough draft. But it's not like you're just tracing the lines of the rough draft while checking the shape and balance, you're drawing the face while being conscious of the shape. There aren't many people who can teach you how to draw a face in a three-dimensional way, or how to draw a face from any angle, so I think there are many people who always struggle and don't know what to do when they draw it themselves, but my Koro course is now on sale for those people.
Hey, yo, buy it. This guy, look at him. He draws real good. Also, yeah, there aren't that many people who actually put the time and effort forward to show you not only how to draw a face proportionally in various angles, but also do so in a stylized manner, specifically in anime style. There really aren't that many people who are showing you how to actually do it right. Most people just stick to the angles that they know and then they teach those.
The first course is for drawing the whole body well. The second course is for learning how to draw a character's face in 3 dimensions so that you can draw it from any angle, as well as how to draw hair in a 3-dimensional way and how to draw facial expressions. The third course is for adding details, focusing on how to draw clothes. By taking these 3 courses, you will be able to firmly master the basics of drawing illustrations, so if you're interested, please check out my courses using the link in the description. We also have a set of courses that include the first and second volumes, a set of the second and third volumes, and a set of the first and third volumes. The 2-pack course is a better deal than buying them separately, so if you're looking to buy them all at once, be sure to check this out. So, I've put in some advertising, but this time, just washing the picture alone makes it look a little lonely, so I'm going to paint it in black and start drawing in the shadows. Since it's a solid paint job, I'm going to focus on not adding too much shadow and only drawing shadows in the dark areas. If I add too much black, the picture might look unbalanced, so I'm focusing on drawing in the areas where the light can't reach, which are called occlusion shadows. So, I've drawn it like this, but what do you think? Compared to the original, the back of the head in the original is really wide, and the face looks like it's leaning down. I think that's a well-balanced face now.
Actually, I'm sorry, guy, but now that I'm looking at it, I think you didn't go far enough with that angle. They should be looking a little lower. And those eyelids should be curved, just like they had them. Just saying.
That it's organized.
Stand and stuff shells, don't wobble, don't slide. Stand up straighter than an old
I don't
guy.
even like white people
Here are
tacos. I'm
7
a
schools that will
Mexican.
give your kid a full ride right now if their SAT score is high enough.
Ew,
And
what the hell? Motherfucker just suddenly like shouted in my ear for a second there. What happened to the audio? That was weird.
Now, let's look at the face on the left. Here too, you can faintly see the rough outline, so if we extract it, we can see that a sphere is drawn in this position. I think that's roughly where the head should be, but if we try to draw the head based on this, there's a mysterious space between the hair and the head. I think it's common for beginners to ignore the initial outline of the head and end up drawing a picture that extends far beyond it when they draw. As I said earlier, I think it doesn't matter how you draw as long as the finished picture turns out well, but in this case, I think it's better to draw the outline of the head around here and make it clear where the face should be. By drawing the outline of the head in 3 dimensions like this, you can prevent the face from unexpectedly becoming larger or smaller, so I think it's best to draw the outline with 3 dimensions in mind. Well, I think this is a good way to get the head, but there's one more thing I'm curious about, and that's the eyes in the back. Let's zoom in and take a look. First, the design of the eyes in the front looks like this, with 2 eyelashes at the corners of the eyes. But if we look at the eyes in the back, they're symmetrical to the eyes in the front, with eyelashes sticking out at the corners of the eyes.
Yeah, that shouldn't be the case. You should only be able to see the eyelashes basically up to this point. Where the hell is my mouse? Up to about this point. That's about it. You shouldn't be seeing the rest of the eyelashes because those belong to the back corner of the eye. And this eye's back corner would be like somewhere in here, basically. So just think about that curve. It would be the eyelash line would be like right here. So this would be the cutoff for the eyelashes on that eye.
When viewed from the front, the eyes are symmetrical, so some people might think that this is fine, but I want you to be aware of how the eyeballs look when viewed in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean is, if you extract just the eyeball part of the eye in the back, well, you can probably imagine it looking something like this, but if you put the eyelids here, realistically speaking, the upper eyelids are covering it like this, and the outer corner of the eyelids are wrapping around the eyeball. The lower eyelids are also attached in a similar way, wrapping around the eyeball, so the parts that are not visible wrap around the eyeball. In this way, you need to think of the eyelids as basically a 3-dimensional object that covers the eyeball. So, even if it's a character from a manga or anime, it's not enough to simply draw the eye design flipped left and right. It's important to draw with the awareness that there's a 3-dimensional eyeball here, and that the eyelids are covering it, and that in this angle, they wrap around the back. Well, since character illustrations are designed with eyes in mind, it might be difficult to think of them in 3 dimensions, but by drawing the eyelashes, the upper eyelashes, with this kind of 3-dimensionality in mind, I think it will be possible to perceive them in 3 dimensions even in terms of the character's design. So, taking the above 2 points into consideration.
Well, hold on, my dude. I'm not sure about the iris placement. I would have expected it to be closer to that outer ridge. Although, if we're thinking about the way that eyeballs actually work, there's a little bulge at the center that is the lens on your eyeball. And so it would create a sort of like empty space between the iris and that outline that would look about similar shade as the iris, but more translucent.
So, taking the above 2 points into consideration, I would like to make some adjustments to this character. I think it would be fine to draw the basic positions of the facial features according to what I just described, but I have adjusted the positions of the facial features a bit. I felt that the position of the nose was a bit too high, so I lowered the tip of the nose a bit, and to match that, I also lowered the position of the mouth a bit. As for the position of the ears, they are quite far apart in the original illustration, so I will adjust them while keeping the balance in mind. Finally, regarding the hairstyle, since I think this is an original
Honestly, that looks really, really good.
I think this is an original character. I don't have any original reference images, but I am making some adjustments to the design while drawing to make it look better. Well, having said that, since I'm using the original illustration as a base, I haven't changed it too much, but I've made some minor adjustments to make the ends of the hair and the flow of the hair easier to understand.
The probability of me understanding this is 0.
You should AI that with Copilot.
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
So, I've drawn it like this, but the volume at the top of the head is a bit small, so I'll move it down a bit and add a bit more volume to the head. Okay. So, I think this is good enough, so let's use it as a base to draw the line art. Also, I've drawn the lines quite tightly at the rough sketch stage, so there aren't many stray lines, so I think it's easier to draw, but as I said earlier, I'll be conscious of the 3-dimensionality of the eyelids and draw the lines around the back of the eyeballs. I didn't mention this earlier, but the eyebrows also wrap around to the other side of the face, so if you keep that in mind when drawing them, I think it will create a more 3-dimensional effect.
Yep. Always got to keep in mind that basically the area around your forehead and your eyeballs is very curved, very cylindrical. So when you're drawing the eyebrows or the eyes, you gotta keep in mind how they wrap around the face. Also, it's easier said than done. I hate drawing eyebrows. The eyebrows are very difficult for me.
And from this angle, it seems like we'll need to capture the mouth area in 3 dimensions. Let's draw it while being conscious of how it curves inward like this. And the jawline, well, here I'm not drawing the jawline that connects to the ear, but rather the part that connects to the neck, and I'm drawing the part of the chin that connects to the hairline. As for the hairstyle, well, I've changed it a bit from the original, but it's a bit hard to see where the bangs are, so let's change the design of the bangs a bit more consciously. Well, that's about it. The rest of the part was pretty much decided in the rough sketch earlier. So I think it's fine to just trace it. But if there are any small details that you're concerned about, you can just adjust the shape as you draw. And for the ears, I've shifted the position from the original and drawn them with a lot of determination, so I'll just trace them as they are. And then there's the back of the head. The volume was a bit small, so I made them a bit bigger. Okay, so for the hair at the back, well, while keeping the design in mind, I'll just trace it and draw it. So, the lines are basically drawn like this, so what's left is to do the same thing as before, in the areas where almost no light reaches, the so-called occlusion shadows. I'll paint the areas that will be in dark shadows with a solid black. Even in a plain black illustration, the
what? The what?
Solid black occlusion shadows will create contrast and make the illustration.
This is what I need to learn to get good at, and that's what I'm trying to do with my drawing here. The understanding where the lines should get thicker and where the shading should become harsher. I tend to draw with very thin lines, and I tend to draw with very little shading in my line work, so I'm trying my best.
And more impressive. So if the line art alone gives the impression of being monotonous, I think it's a good idea to add some solid black areas.
Yeah.
Even in the eyes, just adding a solid black color can make a big difference in the impression.
Yep.
So, while keeping an eye on the balance, I'll gradually add the black areas. If you add a solid black color like this between the strands of hair, the strands will become clearer and easier to see. Well, as I said earlier, if you add too much of this black solid color, it will just end up looking like a silhouette, so I think it's a good idea to gradually increase the amount of black solid color you add while watching how it looks. Okay. So, I think this is good enough, but the key point is the eyes. It's important to draw them with the awareness that they're 3-dimensional, or that they're sitting on top of the eyeballs, and that they curve into the back. Especially at angles like this, the pig will curve into the back of the eyeballs, so be careful when drawing them.
Wrong one.
Okay, so if we compare this to the original illustration, it looks like this. I think we've managed to express the 3-dimensionality of the face and the curve into the back of the eyes.
10 times better.
Finally, I'd like to summarize the key points of this drawing. First, in the picture on the right, the line of reference was drawn like this, but with this face, the position of the eyebrows is quite low from the center of the sphere, so basically, if you draw the face with the idea that the eyebrows are at the center of the sphere, I think you will be able to draw a well-balanced face. Next, in the picture on the left, the ball that will be the reference for the head is drawn in this position. I think it often happens to beginners that the finished picture deviates significantly from the initial reference, but this means that they do not have the control to draw the finished picture where they want it, so I would like you to draw the reference for the face so that it matches the ball that you drew at the beginning.
Bro, shut your mother. Is this really just an...
If you do that,
an
it
ad
should
for
look something like
ChatGPT?
this. I think it will be easier to control the picture if you can draw the reference like this. Also, when drawing eyes at this angle, be aware that there is a thick veil above the eyeball, wrapping around and covering it like this. If you keep this in mind, you will be able to draw eyes with a sense of depth, even if they are somewhat deformed in design. So, what did you think of the search I did this time? I usually only do illustrations in a paid online salon, but since July and August are summer vacation and many people are on vacation, I would also like to search for illustrations posted to my channel's community on YouTube, so if you are interested, please post your illustrations to the YouTube channel's community.
Honestly, I should do that.
My Koro course is on sale for those who want to firmly master the basics of illustration, so if you are interested, please check the link in the description. I hope you will find this also useful. Now, an important announcement. A book that compiles the illustrations I drew during the live stream, a drawing practice notebook to improve your illustration skills, is on sale at the booth. The book comes with a set of rough sketches and clean drawings, so it can be used as a reference when drawing, including tips on handwriting, straight lines, where to focus when drawing people, and where to omit, as well as a collection of pose ideas for drawing full-body characters, so if you're interested, check out the link in the description. Also, the Hi Channel Online Salon offers a variety of content for people who want to improve their drawing skills, such as illustration assistance. The community is also well developed, so if you'd like to study more together or find drawing buddies, please feel free to use the salon. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.
I think that looks fine. I think that looks fine. So yeah, that's Hyde. I forgot why I had subscribed to Hyde, but I mean, that's a pretty good reminder. He knows how to make things look good. Alright, so what's next? What's next? What we got? What we got?
Hello.
Oh, she nips. Video by Ace AT, an Iranian YouTuber.
Hello everyone, I am back with a juicy drop.
Ace, calm down. They have recently been speaking out about their situation in Iran and how it's affected him. It is very interesting to know what it's like living there and what the people of the country actually want, instead of, you know, listening to all of these other individuals who tell you that they know exactly what things are like and they tell you exactly what the people feel like without actually, you know, living there. So this is a first-hand account of I guess squatters who refuse to leave his house. The video is titled "Squatter Refused to Leave My House," so I took action. I wonder what happened. This was uploaded 7 days ago, so it's not that old.
Hello everyone, I am back with a juicy drama for you guys. As you probably saw from the title, the person renting my house refused to leave. But this isn't actually the first time my family has dealt with someone like this. The first time it happened, it was one of my mom's rental houses. Neither of us knew how to handle the situation, so we hired a lawyer and decided to go through the legal process. The problem is that rental laws in Iran change often, sometimes every year or so. Around 2 years ago, when this first happened, there had been changes to the legal requirements for removing someone from your rental property. One of those requirements made the process much more difficult for us. We didn't have 2 witnesses on our rental agreement, which meant the legal route became much longer and more complicated than we expected. What we thought would be resolved fairly quickly ended up dragging for an almost 2 years. Those 2 years were incredibly stressful. My mom had multiple mental breakdowns from the constant pressure, and because the tenant wasn't leaving. She was making little to no income from the property during that time. I was there through every step of it. I saw how the legal process worked, what mistakes we've made, and what we would do differently if this ever happened again. Well, it happened again. This time, it wasn't my mom's house. It was mine. And honestly, I didn't have another 2 years to waste dealing with the same situation. So instead of immediately going through the legal process, I decided to take a different approach.
Hey guys, second vlog. So today we are going to my house that I'm trying to sell. I got a call from my lawyer saying the person we're trying to kick out is basically a squatter now and won't leave, and it's giving us some problems. She is not giving back the house and she has left the house. So now we are trying to find some other measures to kick her out. So let's see how that goes. Bro, I was about to work and our boy right here just gifted me Hades 2, bro. What the fuck? Yo, I appreciate you. You're in the vlog now, bro.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
If you saw
Wait, is
my
that a
gun and
vlog?
you're wondering
I
what
thought
I'm
it was just
carrying
like a
it in,
short
well, I've got
story
a good
time.
answer for you. It's this right here, the Vanish Camo
Oh,
holster,
come
the world's
on,
most
my
comfortable,
guy.
as well as the most inconspicuous.
So how long is this? 10 minutes? What? This isn't a vlog. Come on. Damn.
Well, on my way there,
Yo, he played that music real loud. I wasn't complaining though, because that was some good beats.
around an hour in the ride, I got a call. It was the person who manages the rental and handled finding the tenant for my house. He said, the lawyer is here, but she isn't, aka the tenant. We've tried calling her over and over, but she won't respond. At that point, I wasn't even surprised. This wasn't the first excuse. If you watch my previous video, when I said I was planning to sell my house, this is exactly why it never happened. Every time she was supposed to leave, there was another reason for an excuse. For example, saying I was going to buy another house, but the deal fell through. Or I don't have enough money for a down payment yet, give me a few more days. Or my sister has passed away, give me some more time. Every single time there was another excuse. For a period of 3 months, this person did not leave the house for us to try to sell it. But now I've had enough. I told the rental agent I'm coming today with my lawyer and we're going to handle this.
Chat. We made it to the place where we were supposed to talk to the person who usually does the rental stuff. So, I'm mostly checking if there's cameras because I'm not used to this place. So, if I see there's no cameras, I will start recording. When I got there, I recorded everything. However, because of the privacy and security reasons, I can't show the clip at all. And I will just tell you guys what exactly went down. The first thing I asked was, can we just shut off the electricity, the water, the gas, the phone? And he looked at me and said, you can, but it's illegal. If she sues you, you could end up getting into serious legal trouble. So we kept discussing different options. Eventually, my lawyer and I decided to go to the house ourselves to find out why she wasn't answering anyone's calls or letting anyone inside.
Damn, he got that arm hair thick. I don't even think mine is that thick.
الو کجا این خانم چرا در باز نمی‌کنی؟ در باید باز کنیم برای قرارداد بیاین تمامش بکنیم دیگه. نه آقای محترم اصلا نمیام قرارداد امضا کنم شما هر کاری که دوست داری میتونی انجام بدی من پای این قرارداد نمیام حالا دارم اینجا زندگیمو میکنم راحتم هستم.
Yo, not to be mean, but is this how they invented Star Wars languages? They just took random foreign languages and just like pitch them up or pitch them down. It sounds like Jabba the Hutt.
شما اگه به خونت احتیاج داری میتونی هر کاری دوست داری انجام بدی. خدا نگهدار. Okay. Not that.
What is he doing?
When we got there, I started calling.
What is happening?
That.
Is he doing push-ups? I'm lost.
Bam called her nothing. Finally, she answered. She told me she wasn't even at the house anymore. She was staying with her friends. She wasn't coming to open the door because she wasn't planning to end the rental agreement or leaving. So she was just trying to make this whole process more difficult because she knew what the new rules were and she was trying to abuse that fact. After hearing that, I had to speak with my lawyer. I said, we have 2 witnesses this time, unlike what happened with my mom's house. Let's start the legal process and get the court order. Then he told me something I couldn't believe. The rules had changed again. Now having 2 witnesses wasn't enough at all. The rental agreement...
Yo, I just spat all over my freaking iPad. Come on.
Also needed to be registered through a government online rental system with both of our signatures. Ours wasn't, which meant that the legal process would once again become much longer. He estimated it would take at least 4 months to get the court order. On top of that, it would cost around 700 million rial, about 20 million for the court cost and another 500 million for legal fees. When I heard that, I completely lost it. All I could think of was about everything I've already been dealing with. The years of stress, the financial pressure, the uncertainty, trying to build a future while constantly running into another obstacle. Trying to do everything the right way, only to find out the rules had changed again. At that moment, I was overwhelmed and I made a decision. I wasn't going to spend months waiting while nothing changed. I was going to try something different.
The hell is it? Why do I keep getting AI ads? However, disclaimer, the path I chose is not legal. Alright, the path I chose is not legal. However, the system government has made for these types of issues is for them to get more money. Alright, that makes sense. In my opinion, the system creates incentives for cases to drag on and become more expensive. I mean, it's the same everywhere, basically.
Why try to do things the legal way when I was the one being punished for doing it that way? After we got inside, people from the other apartments started coming over to see what was happening. So I explained the entire situation. To my surprise, they were relieved. Apparently, this woman had been causing problems for almost everyone in the building. People told me she would put glue inside other tenants' keyholes so they couldn't unlock their doors.
What the hell? Who does that?
She was constantly arguing with people, making demands, and creating problems for everyone around her. That's when something happened that I did not expect. The neighbors actually offered to help. Since she wasn't even there at the time and she was staying with friends, everyone started helping us pack up her belongings.
Everyone hated her so much, they're like, yo, get her out of here, get her out of here, come on, we'll help you get her the hell out of here so we don't have to deal with her anymore.
Within a short time, everything was packed. I took a picture inside the house with all of her belongings packed into trash bags and sent it to her. A little later, I sent another photo showing everything outside the house. Not long after that, she came back. And she wasn't alone. She showed up with 2 large men, and from the way they approached us, it felt like they were trying to intimidate me. Luckily, before they arrived, I already called the cops. The officers came to the scene and spoke with everyone involved. The neighbors explained everything that had been happening in the building and shared their own experiences with the cops.
Oh, that's wild, my brother. That is wild. I don't think we typically see this in American police. That is something. On the job and wearing something like that.
In the end, the situation was resolved. She was required to sign the paperwork, leave the property, and also we filed a legal claim for the rent owed during the 3 months she remained after the contract had ended. Looking back, this entire experience taught me how stressful a situation like this can become, but hopefully nobody have to deal with something like this ever. I know many in different countries might say if you own a house, you should be rich, right? From renting and stuff like that, but it's not how it works over here. The house you see right here took me almost...
Unfortunately, it's not how it works in many places now. Sadly, homes used to be an investment, and that's been completely blown up thanks to different laws and the economy and just regulations.
A decade to purchase, and it's only worth around $10,000. Me almost a decade to purchase, and it's only worth around $10,000. And renting it only gives me around $100 a month. So what you're seeing is 10 years of my work, not an average work job, but working for other people in different countries to be able to afford a place like this in my country. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And let me know what you would have done if something like this happened to you in your situation. I would love to know. But as always, I hope you have a great day, night, and evening wherever you are, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. And a massive shout out to all of our memberships to our channel. Thank you guys so much for supporting me.
With lemonade.
Yeah, I've been watching ASAT ever so every how do you say it? Every so often. Ever since he was covered by Asmongold. And it's nice to see that thankfully things are not too dystopian in Iran at the moment. I mean, this was uploaded 7 days ago. Despite the fact that, you know, they're under immense pressure, things are still rolling along. So yeah, what's next? Now, in a place where things are not rolling along so smoothly. Now we've got a video from Jake Monroe, and how long is this one? All right, 30 minutes roughly. Jake Monroe uploaded a video titled "Muslim MP Reports Rupert Lowe for Joe Rogan Appearance." Reported to who exactly? That is interesting. Would it be to... Oh, right. You can't speak your mind in the UK. You get booked for making hateful comments. So it was likely just to the police.
Any response or ramifications or retaliation based on... Has there been any response or ramifications or retaliation based on Rupert Lowe appearing on Joe Rogan and saying the things that he said? Has there been anything about that? Has there been any response from anybody? Yes. Wouldn't know it. It's because we have a Muslim in the House of Commons for some reason. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why there's a Muslim with an MP title. I don't know why that's the case. Labour MP Afzal Khans has reported Rupert Lowe to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards because of alleged Islamophobic comments on the Joe Rogan podcast. I watched all 2 hours of the Rupert Lowe Joe Rogan podcast, and I actually did not detect a single lie. So I don't know exactly what they're gonna get him for. Here's the full letter by Basil the Great, doing great work here. This is to Daniel Greenberg, who is the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards. Real quick, Daniel Greenberg. How do you make sure that all of the politicians that comprise the House of Commons never ever say anything bad about ever? How do you make sure that whenever bad things happen to that the Houses of Parliament, the House of Commons, collectively do everything they can to show some sort of to give some sort of reparations to the community? That's right. You make sure that the guy who could get you suspended or fined as being a politician is a I can't believe this. Do you have any idea the kind of power this guy...
Like how many just censor noises there are. I don't know what he's saying exactly, but I can imagine.
I has being the parliamentary commissioner for standards. Oh my god. Daniel Greenberg was born. He was born in Golders Green, the place that got 25 million pounds when a wandering bioweapon accidentally scratched two. Oh, it's all coming together. Oh, we just lost 4 of our 1 million pound ambulances in an arson attack. Don't worry, I've got it covered. Here's
Oh, I remember that.
5 ambulances. There you go. Oh no, a wandering Muslim accidentally found his way into Golders Green, where this guy is born, and with a knife grazed a couple of. They were out of the hospital the same day, by the way. Here's 25 million pounds, which is like $35 million. Personal security, more policing in their streets. I'm curious, whenever a kid is stabbed or attacked by a Muslim, does Keir Starmer pay 25 million pounds to increase security around that school? Does he? North Westler grew up an Orthodox was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge, and the Inns of Court School Law. His early career included time working in the Lord Chancellor's Department, the Office of the Parliamentary Council, and the Office of Speaker's Council. This guy went straight into politics, where he gets to tell people what to do. He recently served as a counsel for domestic legislation in the House of Commons. God damn. He has also served as an editor for Stroud's Judicial Dictionary, so that's troubling. And Crius on legislation, general editor of Jowett's Dictionary of English Law. This guy has been editing books on our judicial practices and English law, and the Annotated Statutes and Insight Encyclopedia. Editor-in-chief of the Statute Law Review, and contributing consultant editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. Holy shit. Greenberg was appointed Companion of the Order in Bath in 2021. New Year honors. 2021 New Year honors for service to Parliament. Wait till we get to the bibliography. I just saw something. In January 2021, he wrote an editorial in the Chronicle criticizing some Haredi groups for not following COVID-19 restrictions. Oh, that's good. Holding other accountable, that's good. In which he suggests that any community that tolerates benefit, fraud, covering up abuse, and breaking health law has no connection with laws or values and has become simply a self-indulgent and dangerous sect. Bibliography. How to become and why not to. Laying down the law, a discussion of the people, processes, and blah blah blah. What if God's a Christian, an orthodox but skeptical view of the world? A tale of 2 rabbis, faith and fraud. I actually can't believe this. I did not. Why did no one mention Daniel Greenberg to me? You know what? This is actually the main problem here. So you've got loads of noticers out there. You know, you've got like Nick Fuentes, and you've got Kenny Koo, and you've got a bunch of them. None of them are coming to mind. I think Projects do it as well. But these are all American fellas. They're American fellas. When it comes to the UK, no one knows.
It's hard to believe that in the middle of record inflation, Mint Mobile is actually lowering prices. Every plan, even unlimited, for $15 a month. You probably think there must be something in the fine print. So to prove there isn't, we turned our fine print into super duper large print and put it.
Whoa. Okay, nobody knows about Daniel Greenberg. Nobody knows about Ofcom or who's running that shit. Nobody knows. So I think it's up to me to find this shit out. So we've got Daniel Greenberg, who from the moment he could read and write was writing laws and editing the judicial dictionary. He was a general editor of Jowett's Dictionary of English Law, and he was also a contributing consultant editor for the Oxford English Dictionary. From the moment he could read and write, he was pretty much telling people what the fuck to do. If you've got a problem, you've got a problem with Greenberg. He's the guy that you write to when you've got a grievance with someone in the House of Commons. Nigel Farage resigned because he wanted to escape the investigation that was being carried out by the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, which is Greenberg. No wonder politicians are not rising up against or noticing the community being involved with several human rights organizations and several institutions and their leaderships being complicit in pushing woke nonsense. No wonder you can't mention it. No wonder Rupert Lowe didn't stand up there and be like, the woman that wrote the DEI for The Yorkshire police must answer for her crimes. She's the reason why the police have to go through DEI, and that's why Henry Novak's dead. Wouldn't say it. Because Daniel Greenberg is the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards who can suspend you. No matter how many votes you got, what position in Parliament you are, he can suspend you. So this is the Muslim.
What kind of system do they have in the UK? What the hell? Why do they give so much power to these individuals?
Arab politician complaining about Rupert Lowe here and tattling on him to try and get him fired. You've got a Muslim invader from another country tattling on a British white man to try and get him fired, to try and get him suspended, to try and get him sanctioned in some way. Dear Daniel, I'm writing to raise my deep concern about the conduct of Rupert Lowe, MP for Great Yarmouth and leader of Restore Britain. On 8th July, Rupert Lowe MP appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast in which he claimed that parallel Sharia courts are tolerated within the UK judicial system. This is not only a flagrant lie, no it's not, they were actually hiring for this position quite recently. Not only is this a flagrant lie, but it is deeply inflammatory and fuels Islamophobia, and therefore, I believe, brings the House of Commons into disrepute. As part of the conversation in the podcast, Lowe claims they have their own courts, Sharia courts. Yes, a parallel legal system that is tolerated by the general legal system in the UK. When he is asked if such a system is recognized by UK government, he confirms that it is tolerated. He goes on to claim that they're Muslims policing their own people under their own laws. When asked if the UK government is allowing this to take place, Lowe confirms they're allowing that, yes. Sharia councils in the UK have no official or legal constitutional role. So there are Sharia councils in the UK. They have their own courts. They have Sharia courts, yes. And then he says that's a lie. And then he goes on to say in the third paragraph, Sharia councils in the UK have no official legal or constitutional role. Their work consists primarily of adjudicating on religious divorces, though they may also give verdicts on other aspects of day-to-day life for Muslims.
So they do exist. And they're allowed to govern over divorces? Isn't that a bit of a contentious topic in the Muslim faith? How does a Muslim divorce? Is divorce tolerated in the Muslim faith? Divorce is legally permitted and tolerated in the Muslim faith, but it is deeply discouraged. Marriage is viewed as a sacred contract, and divorce is considered a last resort, only to be used when irreconcilable. Gosh, I can't read. Irreconcilable. Yeah, I'm reading it right. Gosh dang it! Why am I making it so difficult for myself? Irreconcilable differences or harm make continuing the marriage impossible. A famous saying of the Prophet Muhammad notes that among all permissible things, divorce is the most disliked by God. If a couple reaches the point of separation, Islamic law outlines specific processes for both parties. Yeah, it seems like a fairly complex thing, and essentially you would go to a Muslim court to get a divorce initiated, but the court would advise you to take other measures and reconcile your marriage before going through with the divorce.
For example, on Sharia compliant finance, or on halal food, right? So a normal person would suggest that that is what Rupert Lowe is actually talking about. This is, of course, similar to the function of the Beth Din within... Oh, he's brought up the communities and how they're allowed to do it and how they've got it. So okay, let me just finish reading this before I tell you exactly what the fuck this little rat's trying to do with this. This is, of course, similar to the function of the Beth Din within communities, which provides civil arbitration as an alternative to court action under the Arbitration Act 1996. This is not called out or criticized by Lowe in the podcast interview. This is, unfortunately, not the first time Rupert Lowe MP has fed into far-right tropes which seek to sow division. Far-right tropes that seek to sow division, which doesn't exist until Rupert Lowe says it exists, apparently, in society, and scapegoat Muslims. He recently published a report. Here we go. He recently published a report, gang inquiry report, which claimed that Muslim gangs are to blame for child sexual abuse in Britain. He has claimed that at the very least 250,000 young white girls have been subjected to repeated gang trafficking, torture, primarily by Pakistani Muslim men since mass immigration began in the 1950s. This claim is not backed up by any evidence and is, of course, another well-versed Islamophobic trope, applying suspicion to all Muslims and treating every Muslim as collectively responsible for the actions of a few. Oh my god, dude! Imagine calling 250,000 women, or at least the women that came forward, liars, saying that the rape gangs ain't real, and then provides no evidence to suggest that. He's done no research of his own. He's done nothing at all to absolve the Muslim communities of their participation in things like gangs. He just said, it's not real. Rupert Lowe does years of investigation, years of work, years of inquiries and interviews and testimonials. And what does this Muslim rat say? It's not real. Absolutely flagrant lie. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that Rupert Lowe MP has championed policies that have been widely rebuked and labeled Islamophobic. As leader of Restore Britain, he stands on a platform which calls for banning the burqa and halal slaughter and the stripping of citizenship from individuals it does not agree with. Slinging out Allah Abd el-Fattah, a Muslim British citizen who I'm pretty sure was a terrorist. Giorgio Samaras, assistant professor of public policy at the School of Government and the Policy Institute at King's College London, has said that Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are the expressions of neo in this country. I would far prefer to live in a neo Britain than a Islamic one. Guess which one people like me die in? Appearing on Joe Rogan's...
I mean, yeah. The UK is in a real difficult spot.
Podcast itself is extremely problematic. Joe Rogan has a number of times made Islamophobic comments as if that is grounds to do anything. Like we give a It's supposed to be Islamophobic, you face. We don't like you. We're not trying to avoid being called Islamophobic. We're inviting it. We're trying to show you we don't like your shit. In an interview with Vice President J.D. Vance, Rogan failed to counter Vance's sort of joke that the UK is heading towards being the first Islamist country with nuclear weapons. Then disprove it. This follows a concerning trend on the podcast, which has, in recent years, become increasingly relaxed about its fact verification processes. Rogan has peddled COVID-19 conspiracies, downplayed the illness itself, and promoted vaccine skepticism. He has also had accusations of anti-Semitism made against him. Here we go. You see, this little Muslim rat knows he's talking to a Jew. So he's brought up the, what was it called? The something din, the Asha din, or what did he call it? The Beth din. So he brought that up because he knows he's not appealing to a parliamentary commissioner for standards. He's appealing to a Jew. And accusations of anti-Semitism made against him and his hosted He's appealing to a Jew. At accusations of anti-Semitism made against him and his hosted controversial conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on his platform 3 times. It is concerning that an elected member of the House would wish to associate with a platform which has failed to uphold a pursuit of truth as its primary function. And it is even more worrying that Lowe wished to use it to spread yet further Islamophobic disinformation. So Rupert Lowe isn't lying. He's telling the truth. He's expressing his free speech. He did a great deal of investigation into the Muslim gangs, in fact, into gangs, and found out that it was primarily Pakistani men doing it. Afzal Khan hasn't done any research of his own. Hasn't gone through all of the legislation, all of the papers, all of the inquiries, all the information, all the interviews. He hasn't gone through any of this stuff. He hasn't gone through any of the reported people that were arrested for being part of the gang. He didn't go to any of these neighborhoods or investigate or interview any of these Muslim groups that are responsible for doing it and trying to prove them wrong, trying to prove them innocent. He didn't do any of this shit. He just looked at the Red Gang inquiry and went, it's not true. Not us. What do you mean? I spoke to a bunch of women that said you guys were doing it. Nope, not us. And even if it was us doing it, that doesn't mean that you should be nasty to all Muslims, actually. Right, okay, but you know you're here, or they're here, because we allowed people like you to come in. I know you're one of the nice Muslims, but in order for the nice Muslims to come in, bad ones come in right behind you, because you tend to leave the door open. We can't get nice Muslims like you without letting in the bad Muslims, because the moment you guys get in, you become MPs, and you start letting in as many of these as you can possibly get. Islamic disinformation. This dipshit said they have their own courts, yes, a parallel legal system, and that the UK government tolerates it. He goes on to claim that they have their own laws, and that Lowe claims that they're allowing that, yeah, and that this is a flagrant lie. He says this is a flagrant lie in reference to the Sharia courts. This is a flagrant lie. The Sharia councils are in the UK have no official legal or constitutional role. That's what. In fact, you're just repeating what Rupert. Hello. You're just Afzal. Are you? Look, man. Are you okay? Look, listen. That's what Rupert Lowe just said. Can we get a light in here? I need to test this guy's eyes. Are you awake, Afzal? Hey, dude. You literally just repeated what he said. There's no such thing as Sharia courts. We don't have our own laws. We have Sharia councils.
Yeah, they said we don't have the courts. We have councils. These councils / courts, whatever the hell you want to call them, don't have any legitimate recognition from the official legal courts of the UK, but they are tolerated, which they actually repeated in this report. Yes, they do exist, but they only exist for these reasons, and we tolerate that. So, I mean, no one here is lying. Everyone is telling exactly the same story.
In the UK, and they're the ones that govern us in parallel with the actual governance. He says it right there. This is a lie. He said this. Here's me proving that what he said is not a lie. Is it because he said the word Sharia courts and not Sharia councils? They have no official legal or constitutional role. He didn't say they did. He just said you use it to govern yourselves based on your own laws. Right. Which you go on to describe. Their work consists of primarily adjudicating on religious divorces. There's only one kind of divorce here in the UK, and we already have courts for that. Though they may also give verdicts on other aspects of day-to-day life for Muslims. We already have a court for that. The British court. You can't operate. I can't believe. Listen, Sharia councils in the UK have no official legal or constitutional role. Oh, by the way, we also make up verdicts for our own day-to-day life for Muslims. They also give verdicts on other aspects of day-to-day life for Muslims, for example, on Sharia compliant finance or on halal food. This is, of course, similar to the function of the Beth Din, bringing up the Jewish thing, because this Muslim knows he's not talking to a white member of parliament or a white member of the government. He's talking to and he's appealing to the fact that he's a. So he brings it up multiple times. The Beth Din brings that up. And then over on this other page, it's like, oh yeah, they've said anti-Semitism as well. I know you're Jew. No, you don't like that stuff. Rupert Lowe went on a podcast, didn't lie for 2 hours. You must send him to the chokey. That's what this letter is. You can't just say Islamophobia when someone's telling the truth. If you are so sure that these gangs are not real and they're false and they're fabricated and there's no evidence, then please go ahead and publish your own gang inquiry. No one's stopping you. Unlike Rupert Lowe, in which case they did stop him from doing it. Sadiq Khan, the Pakistani guy. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. The Pakistani, non-white mayor of London. Do you mind if I investigate the London boroughs for the gangs that we found in various other places throughout the UK? Absolutely not. You cannot do that. You can't investigate. There are no gangs. Oh, so there's no gangs. So you don't mind if I investigate if there are any gangs? No, you can't do that. White people in the UK, British ethnically British people in the UK are going to work, they're going to school, they're meeting up in cities, they're going to restaurants, they're living their day-to-day lives, they're having sport games, they're celebrating birthdays, they're going about their day-to-day life, they're not celebrating even, they're just enjoying their day-to-day lives here in the UK. All the while, barely below the surface, they are living on Island. This, the UK, is Island. You have a very thin...
Yeah, it's looking like it's much worse than the Epstein case. There are far more victims, far more witnesses, far more actual reports and what you call it, like firm information, confirmed information. And the number of victims is staggering, and it's all over the whole nation. That is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that they have so much concrete information. It's a bad thing that it's to this extent.
Layer of citizen day-to-day life, a very domestic, average, everyday sort of city life, country life, British people just going about their day. You don't need to look too far to find organized gangs. We are living on Island. Comparing rates across Europe is complex. No, it's not. Countries with broader legal definitions, there should be one definition, such as Sweden and England, frequently record the highest statistics per capita. England and Wales. Tiny little England and Wales. It's Island. And this Muslim MP wants you to believe that the absolutely astronomical explosion of cases in the UK has nothing to do with the very similar parallel explosion of Muslim immigration. Nothing at all. Scotland is overwhelmed by every single day. There's been another migrant in Scotland, and they can't actually police it because of how fast it operates. There's a neat little graphic for you. Back in 2000, 8,593 England and Wales, 68,000 23 years later. And then France has the highest overall. You guys have seen Paris, or Parisistan. Number of reported cases in selected European countries in 2022, right here. The UK is Island, and it has been put together and carefully orchestrated for Muslim men to come here to enjoy Island. This is Pleasure Island for them. They come here, they get immediate access to drunk, drugged white women, underage white women. They get free stay while they're doing it. It's like an all-inclusive resort where they get paid to be here. Please come. Our white women. Yeah. So we've also got these graphs here. These graphs show you immigration trends. You can see here, it's as the years go on, we get a huge explosion of immigration. It's amazing how close and how similar the graphs for immigration are to the graph. Isn't that nuts? And they want you to believe that these are unrelated. Absolutely nothing to do with each other. This letter is absolutely insane. I want you to keep in my reaction to seeing Daniel Greenberg, but don't contextualize why my reaction was like that. People will be able to figure out what I'm doing. Appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast itself is extremely problematic, he says down here in this final paragraph on the first page. Now, he's trying to get an investigation launched into Rupert Lowe because he appeared on a podcast. Despite all this other stuff, not only this stuff here, that he goes on to, yeah, he lied, blah, 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 it's all a lie. By the way, it's all true. Okay, he says it's a lie here, shows it's not a lie there. Far-right tropes, I don't know what he's talking about there. Seek to sow division in society. There already is division in the society. Again, us going like this, look, is not sowing seeds of division. The thing we're pointing at is the thing that is causing the division. Appearing on a podcast should be investigated. Joe Rogan has himself made a series of Islamophobic comments. Can you define Islamophobic for me, please, real quick? Because the reoccurring definition I keep seeing being thrown in our faces is the fact that anything factual that you have to say about Muslims that is a negative thing is Islamophobic. It turns out that you actually can't say anything about it whatsoever, because according to Afzal Khan, unless every Muslim is doing it, you can't accuse Muslims of doing it. I mean, he says it right here by himself. He says, he stands on a platform banning the burqa and halal slaughter. The gang inquiry was going to bring in Muslims into disrepute, is essentially what he said here. He claimed that at least 250,000 young white girls have been subjected to repeated gang trafficking, torture, primarily by Pakistani Muslim men since mass migration began in the 1950s. This claim is not backed up by evidence, he says, and is of course another well-versed Islamophobic trope, applying suspicion to all Muslims and treating every Muslim as collectively responsible for the actions of a few. Well, I don't see other Muslims running into the streets to try and get retribution against these Muslim gangs, do you? Because there seems to be a lot of evidence to suggest that these Muslim gangs exist and operate actively. I don't see a lot of Muslims like yourself, Afzal, running out into the streets to denounce these Muslim gangs. You're more annoyed that it's being pointed out. Muslims could stand in solidarity with Rupert Lowe instead of calling him Islamophobic. That's a weird thing to point out. It's a weird thing to be said. Afzal Khan had the opportunity to stand with Rupert Lowe and be like, as a Muslim myself, I denounce the Muslim gangs. They do not represent Muslim culture. Instead, what he does is says that it's not true and it's Islamophobic. Ooh, that's a bad look. Treating every Muslim as collectively responsible for the actions of a few. Well, these few that you're referring to don't seem to be being held accountable by all the other Muslims as a collective. You're not doing that. We are. They act insane and they and stab everybody, and you do and say nothing, actually. So, Afzal doesn't believe that the gang inquiry or the gangs is a Muslim problem in the sense that Muslims are responsible for doing it. It's a Muslim problem because it makes Muslims look bad and then will make people not like Muslims anymore. Yeah. It turns out having a gang that is primarily Muslims, like 97% Muslims, tends to make people not like Muslims because Muslims aren't calling it out. They're not denouncing it. They're not exposing it and being like, this does not represent the Muslim faith. They're not saying anything about it, actually. And unless every Muslim's doing it, then Muslims are not responsible for it. It's just a coincidence. It's just an opportunity to make Muslims look bad. Not every Muslim was involved with the gangs, so therefore, it's not a Muslim thing. Only when every single Muslim is doing it, then it's a problem. Then, yes, I'll admit that it's a Muslim thing. But until then, until every single Muslim is involved with it, this letter, 250 young white girls, no sympathy for whatsoever. He basically just says it doesn't exist. Unfortunately, this is not the first time Rupert Lowe MP has championed policies that have widely rebuked and labeled as Islamophobic. As leader of Restore Britain, he stands on a platform which calls for the banning of the burqa and halal slaughter. I'm curious, Mr. Muslim man, what happens when a Muslim wife takes off her burqa? What does her husband do? Appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast itself is extremely problematic. Can you believe that Rupert Lowe appearing on a podcast in Texas to talk about things that he has deeply researched is a problem? This follows concerning trend on the podcast, which has in recent years, blah, 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 COVID. I can't believe what this... Yeah, look, do you remember I said about the job? Yeah, Sharia law administrator. It's there. There is no parallel court or council or anything for Sharia law. Oops! Whoopsie! I remember that going viral and Muslims being like, no, you misunderstand. It's just for these small little things. Do you believe him? Do you? Can't even smile. That's the smile you have when you come from a joyless wasteland. This man is baring his teeth at us like a threat. You see, whenever you force your women to wear burqas and shit and you don't see a boob or elbow for your entire life, that tends to be what your smile turns out to be. There's Rupert Lowe's reaction upon reading this information. We have Rupert's response. Dear Mr. Khan, thank you for taking the time to report me to the parliamentary authorities over my criticisms of the Sharia courts, the burqa, the halal slaughter. Not just that, but you also included our independent inquiry into the Muslim gangs and my appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast, which you deemed to be extremely problematic, to quote someone I just saw in the chat. Carefully devising and formulating your complaint was clearly time well spent for a politician representing such a neglected part of Greater Manchester. The multiple footnotes referencing Joe's podcast, the most watched on the planet, were particularly entertaining, very helpful, thank you. But joking aside, I want to be really clear in my response to your various complaints. These are barbaric, medieval, and backward Islamic practices that have no place in our country. This is the very British, polite literature form of this. You. When Restore Britain gains power, they will... Oh, I'm gonna come, dude.
No. Anxiety disorders affect 19.1% of U.S. adults annually. One in 5 U.S. adults report depression.
He made a quick joke like, but listen closely. When Restore Britain gains power, they will all be banned on day one. It will be glorious. On your criticism of our gang inquiry, I would respectfully invite you to a meeting with Sammy Woodhouse, a survivor who was by a Pakistani man and has been leading our inquiry. Sammy is very keen to discuss our findings with you. In short, mass industrial of vulnerable white girls across Britain by gangs of Muslim men, including Greater Manchester, where you're the MP, where the Labour Party and Andy Burnham have failed so spectacularly. Is he the MP for Manchester? Pretty sure he is. Please let me know a date and time when is convenient. In the meantime, I have attached a copy of our inquiry report, also our mass deportation plan for your reading.
Yo.
Both complement one another. In future, if you have an issue with my politics, please come directly to me for an adult discussion rather than running to the authorities in an attempt to censor my views, which are held by a large majority of the British people. Thanks for your attention, as always, and I look forward to a second complaint. Oh, fuck! Rupert, you get the siren for that, buddy. Run for cover. You just got ass ripped. Mr. Khan, indeed. Dear Mr. Khan, please read on while I rip you a new one. Holy shit, that is absolutely epic. Absolutely smoked him. Smoked this little rat.
Mr. Greenberg, Rupert Lowe said some hurdy words about Muslims and Islamophobia.
I'm so mad that became a word, man, because me, the moment Muslims figured out the word Islamophobia, they can't stop using it, can they? Every single time someone holds a mirror to them, Islamophobia. That's a lot of Muslims in the gangs over there. What do you have to say about that? I tell you exactly what I have to say about that. Islamophobia. I believe you're familiar with this, actually. You don't acknowledge that the gangs are comprised of Muslims almost exclusively. You don't want to denounce this as a Muslim. You don't want to come out and denounce this aspect of society. You want to just you want Muslim gangs being criticized to be considered Islamophobia. So the gangs represent Islam is what you're saying. And by us saying that it's a bad thing to have, that's Islamophobia? Is that what you're saying? They're here to invade. They can preface their existence here all the ways that they want. They can redefine British to include them. They can do all this shit. They can pretend that they're not here to do anything else other than just have a good time at Island. Because that's why they're here, right? They've come here for the past 70 years because Island. I can't wait to go to Island. Yeah, you get free drugs and alcohol, you get free underage girls. God, you can go nuts, you can do whatever you like. Oh, that sounds like so much fun. Yeah, right? And then when you get arrested, they just move you to another part of the city and you can do it all over again.
If you own a gun, you're probably going to be interested in this right here. This laser bullet works with our laser.
It sure seems to be true. That's the worst part. People are complaining and their complaints don't seem to be without merit. Oh, right. This was a music video. I don't think I can watch this. I don't think I can watch this, but I did want to find out what the hell this was about. What the freak? This is like some Viking metal or something. So I'm gonna save that for later. How am I gonna do this? Grab it. Put it aside.
Neighborhood was a sun-baked.
And then let's listen to something a little more peaceful. Yeah, let's just listen to something a little more peaceful. This is something about free water. I don't know what the hell is going on here, but it seemed interesting enough. And this is uploaded by Andrew Millison, titled Free Water Was Illegal. And he changed that. Who is he? And how did he change that?
Urban desert. But 30 years, this Arizona neighborhood was a sun-baked urban desert. But 30 years later, it's been completely transformed into an abundant native food oasis. And they started it all by breaking the law. Because before the work, The streets were designed to wash all the precious rainwater down the drain, leaving the ground too dry for trees and plants to grow. But one community went rogue, literally cutting holes into the city curbs because they knew where the water needed to go. And we're about to meet the water harvesting legend.
Walking through the puddles with the freaking huaraches, that's crazy. Why is the video quality so poor? What the freak is this? 720? That's not enough. Give me at least 1080.
They knew where the water needed to go. And we're about to meet the water harvesting legend that cracked the code for turning depleted neighborhoods into thriving ecosystems. Brad.
Andrew, man.
Hey, yo, am I subscribed to Andrew Millison? When did this happen? That's crazy.
You doing?
Great, man.
This is my original permaculture teacher from 30 years ago. I can't believe how awesome this place looks. It's so different.
Well, we keep evolving, man. That's the whole aim. So we've actually got the rainwater tanks now passively shading and cooling the garden. We've now got goats along with the chickens, and we're really diversifying the food systems. So we're bringing in native food plants that are way...
It's looking like, unfortunately, my capture card has died, so bear with me. We're about to reset. Oh, right. What am I doing? Turn that off. Can I, give me a second. What the hell? There we go. Hit OK on that. Just turn it off for now. And then what we gotta do is we just gotta plug things back in. Unplug, plug it back in, turn this on. And we're back. Hell yeah, we're back. There we go.
way more adapted to our extreme heat, the drought, so the system's becoming much more resilient. But this is what I'm really excited about. This is not on our property. This is everyone's. This is public commons, public land. This is the neighborhood rain irrigated food forestry, where we're using the street to water the street trees that shade, cool the street, and feed all those living along those streets. Let's check it out.
I mean, honestly, that looks pretty cool.
So here we are on a neighborhood street. Our whole intention when we began is let's change the way we look at a street. So water flows along the street gutters, then oftentimes ends up in the storm drain. Well, what if we could capture that water before it hits the storm drain? Let's look.
I mean, the reason why people normally do this is to get rid of all the excess water, right? But they're living in a desert, which they need water. So yeah, why would you put it in the drain? That doesn't make any sense. It's like designing a city for